Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
The following is a World-Class Bullshitters exclusive.
Thursday night, which means it's time for the High Council here on World Class Bullshitters. I'm your host, Jeff Hicks, and with me tonight is my co-host, Caffeinated Wolf.
What is going on, Jeff? What is going on, chat? Hail to y'all. It is fantastic to be back. We didn't have a show last week. It broke my heart. I was sad. I was downtrodden. I was sullen. It was not fun for me. I didn't know what the hell to do with myself on a Tuesday night. But we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and it's great to be here. We got a fantastic panel and an even better show.
You are 100% right about our fantastic panel. Let's introduce them up first. So you know him, you love him, say hello to WDW Pro.
Well, I'm happy to be back on the High Council. And yes, I did bring a towel.
We're bringing
Perfect.
back Towley, all right? We're bringing back Towley. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. That and the Okama Game Sphere. That's a good episode.
It is.
And finally, folks, let's say hello to essentially like the third co-host of this show, the ScriptDoctor.
I am the Martin Short of these three amigos here.
Oh my god. You brought up Martin Short. I miss Only Murders in the Building. Like, I don't have anything to watch right now. So
What a great... I'm loving that season. See, there are good things out there, folks. There are good shows out there to watch.
Every now and then.
Oh,
Shout out
dude.
to these lovely ladies in the chat, the writers of Yaira #1 over at the Rippaverse. They've already got some other projects in the works as well.
Ooh.
And on top of that, they are the writer-director team behind American Mary and a ton of other fantastic films, TV, Scream Queens. I love them to death. Jen and Sylvia Saska.
Don't forget Hellevator. That is my
Elevator, yes, that's the one that you always talk about. That is the one you always talk about.
Because I've met them at a con years ago, and every time I would see them, I would just go Hellevator, because not to them, physically, because I don't want to be that guy. But every time I see their faces, I think of Hellevator, because I loved the shit out of that show. I wish it got more episodes or more seasons, but we're not there yet with the Power Man. But when we do, let's get the show back. That's what I want.
You hear that, ladies? Jeff wants Elevator to come back. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I'm a big horror guy. Look, it's October. It's Schlocktober here on the channel, folks. Now, I know you're waiting for your Schlocktober content. There's been some, but more is coming. Now, I needed to take a little trip for my birthday last week. And so, folks, we'll give you all the fun details about all the depravity that went down in Las Vegas. It was a great time. It was one of those
You
trips
don't want
where
to jump
it's
into that ball pit, let me tell you. Stay out of that one where Jeff's been.
Yeah, it was a hell of a time. So join us on Thursday where we can tell you more about that on the WCBS podcast, episode 377. We have a very special guest joining us as well. But folks, quick bit of housekeeping before we get started on today's show. This episode, as always, is brought to you by StealingSolo.com. So, folks, if you backed or bought a copy, the orders go out tomorrow. I had to go over to storage again and get another case. I think there's maybe one after this one. So when they're gone, they're gone. So go to StealingSolo.com to read the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs. It's the story of a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans who kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake the film in their basement. It's been called Laugh Out Loud Funny, and it's something that I'm very proud to bring to you guys. So go to StealingSolo.com to get a copy right now. That'll be shipped out in the morning. If you bought a copy earlier, they'll be on the way tomorrow. You bought a bunch of books when I was on vacation, so that was something nice to come back to. But speaking of coming back to, it's nice to be back here on YouTube this Tuesday night. But we're going to start out with some bad news. We won't be here next week. It's Halloween. It's my favorite holiday. And unless something crazy happens, like I said off air, like if Kathleen Kennedy gets fired and replaced by Britney Spears or some ridiculous thing like that, or dies, I don't want to wish anything bad on the lady. She may have killed Star Wars, and Indiana Jones, and Willow, and
there's enough death in that woman's life.
At what point is one woman's life, one twat's life, worth billions in a galaxy far, far away? I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
Okay, we'll use all of our connections, and we'll get a time machine.
Maybe
we'll go back a decade.
Maybe it'll be
and we'll wipe
stealing Kathleen.
I can tell you. Have you ever seen Fargo?
Be napping Kathleen.
Kidnapping Kathleen. There you go. See, this is why we have writers on the panel, of which I am not among. People that actually know what the hell they're doing.
Now, the one thing I want to ask you: have you seen the movie Fargo?
Yes, love Fargo.
Then you're going to know the outcome of napping Kathleen. She's going to be like the leg. It's just like, sorry, lady, we're doing this for Star Wars. What? Right in the wood chipper. That's the end of the book. It'll be 10 pages long, folks.
It's for the greater good. God wills
greater
it.
good.
We're
like
on a
Down in
mission.
the forest where they shot the Ewok village.
We're on a mission from God.
Oh, fuck, I
Watch
love
it, Elwood. Watch it, you.
You
You
do
eat
look
your
like
whole
the kind of guy
chicken
that
and you
would
be
order
good over
dry
there.
toast.
I would not order dry toast. The fuck is that?
By the way, Garth Vader, thank you for your nice compliment about stealing Solo. I'm glad you enjoy the comedy writing. I'm almost done with Wokebusters. We'll talk about that at another time. But guys, folks in the chat, hit that thumbs up button to let YouTube know that you enjoy this content, because the algorithm keeps changing. And I'm reading articles about how YouTube's claiming they're about to make record revenue and all this crap, but they're screwing us over. So hit that thumbs up button to let them know that you enjoy this content so you can get more of us. Now, guys, since it's been a couple of weeks, we're not going to try to recap anything. The world is always moving. The world of entertainment is always changing. Things are going on. But I think we'll start out briefly with this one, because Matthew Vaughn, the director of such films as Kingsman, and did he do Kick-Ass? Is that a Matthew Vaughn picture?
No, he did X-Men First Class.
First Class, that's what it is. And so he's a talented filmmaker who's made some interesting stuff. But he's in the news right now for a weird reason. So over the weekend this article dropped, but I just saw it yesterday. He was interviewed talking about wanting to do stuff with Star Wars and how he was pushing for, if he were to come and be involved with it, he wanted to reboot it. Which later on he said, oh, it was just a joke, I was joking. But if they were going to do that, give me a call. Now, that's the thing fans have wanted for years, ever since this Disney trilogy shit the bed. Everyone's like, reboot it, reboot it, reboot it. And sadly, we're getting deeper and deeper into it, so there's no rebooting happening. But, Script, I know you had seen what Matthew Vaughn said. Well, let's start with you. What did you think of, like, somebody having the nerve to say, oh, let's just reboot it?
I think he's doing this all to get people interested in him, because, unfortunately, Matthew Vaughn doesn't have his cast of Argyle to help promote a movie that's coming out pretty soon, which is his latest venture. And if you're familiar with his work, the last movie he made called The Kingsman, which was actually a fairly solid film, bombed at the box office. Nobody saw it. And the advertising behind it was kind of poor. And I think he is doing the rounds and talking about how, Star Wars and Marvel haven't been what they are, making very interesting claims about The Flash, which I know are patently false, all to generate some interest in certain quadrants of the internet to try and get people to Google him, to dig up dirt on him or whatever, but eventually direct them to the trailer for Argyle and hopefully sway them over so that he could possibly have a solid opening and, with any luck, some legs in the theaters for this film. Because there's no other explanation as to why he's making these points when he's never made anything anywhere near like this before. And I think it's kind of funny, because a lot of people who literally did not know him 3 weeks ago all of a sudden now know him. And I'm like, then it's working.
Yeah.
Because I'm the only one who's been promoting Argyle for like a year and a half. Because I actually knew what it was about. And every time someone would be like, oh, Henry Cavill, we love him. I'm like, great. Are you excited for Argyle? What's that? How could you love the guy if you don't know what movies he's coming into next, unless it's other than Superman or The Witcher? I mean, that was my argument. And now, unfortunately, with the SAG-AFTRA strike, Henry Cavill, Sam Rockwell, Bryce Dallas Howard, they can't promote this film, which the trailer looks really great. So what's Matthew Vaughn to do? Well, he's got to say outrageous stuff in the trades, so that the people that don't normally read the trades, or the people that are in certain spheres of YouTube, will get his name inside their head and take interest in what he's doing and how outrageous he is as a filmmaker. And maybe that interest will lead them to Argyle, and maybe it'll lead them to something that a lot of people in that sphere have been wanting in a very long while. A fun movie.
Now, I've seen the trailer for it. I'm on board. But the one thing I wanted to address is it's interesting how the corner of the internet that Matthew Vaughn wants to get to talk about him is the same corner of the internet that gets labeled as a lot of stuff. Because I think there's a lot of buying power in that. I don't want to say it's like any mentality of the or any political affiliation of the audience, but the mentality of that corner of the internet is more of a traditional, I will consume and buy my entertainment, I'll go buy a movie ticket, if I like it, I'll buy it on home video type of thing. So I find it interesting that, you know, when these people are riding high and eating good, now these are just internet trolls or this or that, but now they want this same group of people to talk about their movies. Now this is not an indictment of Matthew Vaughn. I don't really have anything bad to say. I've liked his movies that I've seen, but I just found that interesting that you want to like Hollywood in quotation knows where to go to when they want to get eyes on something and make money, and it's ironically the same people that the other half tells to go away.
Well, of
And
course,
Matthew Vaughn doesn't care.
That's exactly what we saw with things like No Way Home, right? They knew that they had really nothing else to sell, so like, how do we get people to actually spend money on this? Oh, I know. We'll bring back the other two Spider-Men that people actually liked, right? It's the nostalgia keys. It's the jangling of those. It's, you know, trying to get people who actually have capital to spend on your product to come back and do said spending on said product. These people know where the money is. They're not stupid. They just largely, for the most part, don't care. They actively, willfully act in opposition to the wants and desires and preferences of the people who would actually be able to fund their crap.
In some
Constantly.
cases, yeah. Well, here's the thing: it's mostly the trades by proxy of manipulating the powers that be to say those things. Because again, they're the spokespeople for the studios. Matthew Vaughn doesn't really say anything. Never has costed any fans, as far as I know. However, I'm counting my watch right now. I'm looking at my watch to see if he's going to go that direction. Crap. What's his name? Who directed the latest Indiana Jones?
Mangold?
James Mangold.
James Mangold. Thank you. I'd be shocked if he did go that way, but I think he's doing the right thing, which is he's just basically saying, listen, these are the people who clearly have money because they do. We know they do. They spend it on stuff. Might as well get on the radar in some capacity. What's the easiest way to get on the radar? Well, instead of just appeasing to them, saying, hey, look at me, I've made this great movie, it's be like, no, let's remake Star Wars. Yeah, let's take the Skywalker. Let's talk about how Disney screwed up and didn't make it about the Skywalker family anymore in the films, and then, you know, say some nice things about the series that, like the Disney Plus series. They can do whatever they want in the Disney Plus series. That's fine. It's, you know, other aspects of Star Wars. But when it comes to the theatrical films, it's got to be about the Skywalker family. So what? Yeah, why not remake it? That's a great way to get the attention, and it's worked because we're talking about it. He's doing something kind of rather smart, in my opinion. And I think it's all the better for him because, listen, regardless of the fact that he's part of the Hollywood machine, even though I think he's from the UK, he's trying to get people to see a movie that a studio took a chance on him to do after an unfortunate failure to a fairly decent movie that he made. Like, he spent $100 million on The Kingsman, and it brought in worldwide like 140. Like, that's really bad. So I think
it sucks too because I love that franchise.
I think the Golden Circle is the weakest of the three, but yeah, I really like the first one a lot, and I think he's just swinging for the fences at this point to try and actually see well, what direction is the audience actually going, and not really paying much attention to the numbers that he had been fed for the last 8 years from the other studio systems, which are corrupted numbers. They're skewed data. It's stuff from the people from the bottom saying this is what's actually happening, convincing people from the top, and then the people from the top looking out to try and find a more corroborating evidence to support the stuff at the bottom, as opposed to objectively looking at it and saying, wait a minute, these jerks at the bottom are lying to us because they have an agenda and we're losing money as a result of it. The studios have only started to realize that in the last year or so, and Disney is the only one that's still in denial of it.
They really are the worst entertainment company.
Hey, what's up, Sammy? Good to see you, bud.
So I'm hoping that outside of Matthew Vaughn, because he clarified his statement how he's not jumping on the Disney Star Wars. It says it's not been tainted. He's not going to go there. This is his quote. He says, I would say for me, doing a Star Wars movie is to play with the characters that I loved. So if they said to me, we'll reboot, do you want to reboot Star Wars and actually have Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Vader and do your version of it, everyone would say you're an idiot, but that would excite me. So I mean, again, you're right. He's just saying what people want to hear in terms of Star Wars. And it's so interesting how, like, because the co-host of this podcast he was on dumped on the Disney Star Wars movies. So it's like, really, we've kind of moved past the protection period, and now people are using it as almost like a card. Oh, I hate this crap. This is what I want to do. Like my movie, you'll like my stuff. I find that funny. It's like we like flip the switch, and all of a sudden, everyone's against it, even the higher up stuff. So it's time to move on from Disney Star Wars, because Star Wars isn't what it was. But
damaged brand.
Let's say hypothetically in 5 years from now, they're like, we don't know what to do. And so they go with Matthew Vaughn's route, and they're like, you can do stuff in this timeline, and they let him make a movie. Would you go out and see it?
If Matthew Vaughn is given enough reign to do what he wants to do, yeah, because I think he's got one heck of an imagination and a really fun way of how he executes things on film. I think it might work for Star Wars, especially if you understand. And I wouldn't put it past him, because he did so well with X-Men First Class. I think he understands filmmaking and story enough to understand what the genre requires, while still being able to put a little bit of a stamp on it, like Irvin Kershner.
I just want to congratulate Mr. Vaughn on finally going with the Mike Zero strategy. We finally have a Hollywood top-of-the-line kind of fellow who has been inspired by Mr. Zero to throw something out there, red meat that will get the clicks. And then the strategy here is that once the clickifications begin, well, so will be the link to his movie. And so while he cannot promote his movie, he can pull a zero, and the people will know what he's making. I think Script has been exactly right on what the strategy here is. I don't believe that there's a single iota or scintilla of truth to the idea that Star Wars is being rebooted. And the reason that I don't think that's true is because this would have to go higher up than even our dear beloved KK. It would have to go up to maybe Iger, but possibly just below him. And the reason for that is because this would be a multi-billion-dollar decision that would have impacts on merchandise, theme park expansions, etc. You can imagine that if they rebooted all of Star Wars, suddenly there are theme park lands that are based on an antiquated Star Wars that no longer is the hot thing. Well, that would be no bueno for the mouse. So this would go way up high, and I don't sense that Iger is ready to relinquish his hope that he can redeem Daisy Ridley and the character of Rey.
Well, as I understand, like, the Star Wars attractions and whatnot in Disneyland, Disney World don't actually generate that much traffic anyway. Like, comparatively to what you would think, right? If Star Wars was in a heyday right now, if merch was selling well, people largely enjoyed the product that was being put out on Disney Plus and the theaters, then it should be hopping.
Well, the failures really are on merchandise sales inside the parks.
Right.
They're not selling lightsabers. They're not selling little Mando dolls, and so that's a real problem. The other thing that I would say about Disney, and I think this is perhaps the bigger story, is that we have someone out there who's talking about rebooting Star Wars, and that is seen as credible, and it lights the internet on fire. We also have someone who's talking about rebooting Marvel, or many people who are talking about rebooting Marvel, and that seems credible.
We did a video on that the other day.
And is lighting the internet on fire. What that means is that the state of both of Disney's biggest boy franchises, although that's now debatable whether they're aimed at boys at all,
Not marketed
they're,
towards us anymore.
they're
that's for
two,
sure.
yes, previously male-dominated franchises. The only two they have are in such a state that we're all questioning whether they should just be completely done over, because they have hit that dumpster level where people aren't sure they can be redeemed. And that is the state of Disney today.
Yeah.
And you hit the nail on the head, and it's kind of sad too. I know everyone's mad about what Disney's done, so like screw them, but they keep taking stuff that we all, at least my generation, grew up with, and they're like, let's turn it into something it's not meant to be, or make you. The thing that I hate the most is they've turned me off of like comic book movies, because I love comic books. Clearly, that's my thing, but like I can't. It's a work trip to go see the Marvels. Do you think I really? It doesn't matter what's in this time or this slot. Like, if it was, I don't know, Morbius 2 or some dumb shit. And they're like, are you excited for it? Not really. That's the thing that I hate, is they've taken diehard fans and just turned us off with subpar entertainment. It's not, oh, they put a woman in the role. It's not, oh, they put minorities in the role. I don't care about that stuff. But I
That's
don't
been part
like
of comic
shit
books
movies.
forever.
Dude, yes, it has been. Go read
same-
an X-Men comic from 50 years ago.
The same people that are, bitching at us fans, or former fans, I guess, calling us, sexist. Oh, y'all just don't like women. Okay, like 70% of my favorite Marvel heroes are female characters. Like, what do you want about? Oh, you people are all just white incels. You don't like black people. Hello. Like, I grew up with Storm. She's like one of my top 3 favorite X-Men. Grew up with Jon Stewart in, Justice League Unlimited, Justice League the Animated Series, like Bishop, Icon. All
You
these
look
characters.
those up
They-
on
they
Wikipedia.
don't even know.
They're not even real.
They've never even heard of Icon. They're like, Icon, who the hell is that? No, they want some
Dwayne
tokenized
McDuffie.
Superman instead. It's like, no, give me Icon instead. That's better. Like, you want somebody that's quote unquote black Superman, give me Icon. That's more interesting than you just tokenizing another existing character, even if their powers are similar. It's still not the same thing. It's still an original character. You're not taking this other character and just race swapping them and calling them Superman when they're clearly not. It's been this story forever, and it just goes to show these people don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because us fans, that's why we've guffawed at all of these accusations for the last several years, right? Because we're like, what are you talking about? Like, all
We
of
might
these
even
characters,
chortle. Who knows?
maybe that's a $5 word, sir. It's so sad, because all of the things that they claim to have been like, oh, we're, Captain Marvel's the first big female hero, blah, 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 or they'll do this to the black character or whatever. And we're just sitting over here like, okay, but like Blade, like 20 years ago, you remember him? Like, y'all wouldn't even exist right now if it wasn't for that movie. And, all these other characters that we grew up reading the comic books of, like, what are you talking about? That's why it's so ludicrous.
I don't know. I kind of like Girl Thor. She had cool plastic biceps.
Butters.
Oh man, I remember that vividly, where everybody's like, "Oh yeah, Natalie Portman worked out for this." No, she didn't. She wore a muscle suit, and then she got CGI'd on, and then they're showing me like photos of like that. She's clearly wearing a muscle suit there.
Our biceps are so smooth and shiny.
Yeah, it's because they're plastic.
It's because they're also
What?
digitally inserted post effects.
So
Yeah,
wait,
with
Natalie
low-quality
Portman doesn't have to
CGI.
work out like Chris Hemsworth?
Nope.
No, they don't want that kind of equality.
Well, there's two reasons they did that. The first one is the obvious one, is that Natalie Portman didn't want to inject herself with a slew of chemicals to beef up. The second one is that her character is also dying of cancer, so they have to go back and forth between those two images, and you don't really want to be doing a body weight transition like Christian Bale did
I was
when,
about to say,
before
like
he
Christian
was
Bale.
before he entered his 40s. So yeah, that's kind of why. It's usually safer that way, but
Oh, what Bale does with it, or used to do with his body, was super unsafe. Like,
yeah.
I forget what the time was in between. I think it was The Dark Knight and then The Fighter, where he was like this crackhead. He was super emaciated. He was
Well, that'd
skin and
be the
bones.
Machinist. So the
Yeah,
Machinist,
the Machinist
he
is
was-
the one where he's super cracky.
Yeah, that came before.
And then he did it twice.
Batman Begins. He ended up having to put on 80 pounds for Batman Begins, and then they called him Fat Man because he was too bulky, and then he had to slim down 30 while shooting the movie.
Well,
That's crazy. That's so unhealthy.
Oh yeah,
I
I
agree.
think he stopped it when he did Dick Cheney. When he played Dick Cheney is when he stopped doing.
Yeah, and
body
then he got like
transformation.
super huge, like
Yeah.
super huge. It's like, okay, man, you gotta knock that off. You gotta stop that.
But no, Pro, you're right though about that being the sad state. Now, are you when you talk about the Marvel reboot? Are you discussing the whole Kevin Feige book that got published?
Oh yeah, Joanna Robinson, of course, knows things that you can only know if you talk to the people at the top. And it just so happens that she's a vlogger and writer out there. So she received access, and in exchange for that access, I surmise, although I do not know definitively, that that access was granted if she put the people in charge in the best light possible. So it's all Victoria Alonso's fault. It's all Ike Perlmutter's fault. It's the toxic fandom that just won't accept Bree. And Kevin Feige is a genius saint of pop culture zeitgeistery, and he knows exactly when he's going to need to reboot, and it just so happens to be right as everything comes crashing down, but ignore the latter.
Don't forget, James Gunn is not as great of a prolific writer as legend states. It was really Nicole Perlman that did all the work for the first Guardians of the Galaxy film.
That's why they got those authentic female characters like Gamora and Nebula, not because James Gunn was the writer at all.
Mm-hmm.
Page
Don't get me
37
wrong,
says he's a stinky poo-poo head. Reading verbatim there, folks.
Is that a
Page
quote?
37.
Oh, that's a quote. Okay, that's
Yep.
a direct quote.
I don't know. And I've crossed paths with Nicole Perlman. She's a wonderful writer, wonderful person. And she definitely contributed significantly to Guardians of the Galaxy. That was not ever in dispute. But the rumors of James Gunn wanting sole credit, I don't believe at all, because I never heard of those rumors until this book. So, and one thing, I've faced arbitration 3 times in my career. I pay attention to those situations. So, yeah, I don't believe those accusations. But what a fun and biased read that Marvel book is.
What's the name of the book for the audience that might want to read it?
It's the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
The Untold Story.
I can see the cover. I can't remember the title. Script, help me out here. It's all up to you, Script. It's all up to you.
Marvel Cinematic Universe, Secrets and Lies. Marvel Cinematic Universe, Electric Boogaloo.
That's the sequel.
I think it's
getting ahead of
MCU, The
myself.
Rise of Marvel Studios. Yeah.
I'm trying to get into the MCU's frame of mind. I'm already thinking about the
He's
sequel.
got it.
I'm actually already
Rise of-
thinking about
yeah.
the 6th.
Yeah. The Rise of Marvel Studios.
Sorry, I just had to put that comment
play
on
a
screen 'cause that made me
Velociraptor.
laugh.
He could play a Velocipaster.
I made a joke that
terrible
if you were
movie.
to
Yes, it
remake
is.
the Emmerich Godzilla and just replace Godzilla with a ripped Christian Bale, naked, giant 24-story naked Christian Bale terrorizing, obviously we won't see anything, but terrorizing New York, it would be a far more interesting movie than what we got in 98.
Well, yeah, that's granted. That's far more interesting than almost anything I have thought of today at all. Is a giant 24-story ripped Christian Bale censored walking through New York City. Yes,
I'm not
that
entirely
was
sure
my
I agree
outlandish
with
thoughts
that.
of the day.
That movie's not good, but I don't know how much I agree with that statement. That's maybe just a
Wait
little
till you
beyond
find the eggs
pale
that
for me.
hatch a little adult-looking
Oh,
Christian
dear God, no.
Bales. And
Tell me where the churros are. You're 24 stories tall. No, sir.
they hit him with nuclear devices, and he still has the
Where's the
Godzilla scream.
fish?
He does his own Godzilla scream in camera.
Can it just be a sequel to American Psycho? Because I feel like this would be a great, fever
Yeah.
dream of Patrick Bateman.
Yeah, I think they did a sequel, but yeah, this would be another good sequel to American Psycho.
Yeah, we don't talk about the real sequel starring Mila Kunis and William Shatner.
No.
It's
I wasn't even aware that was a thing.
Oh
I think
yeah.
that's
one
sort of
of the
like
worst
Christmas
movies.
Vacation 2, Time with Cousin Eddie. You just don't remark on it. You leave it alone.
The Island
Really
Adventure?
young at that point.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm good actually. I'm good. I don't
Yeah.
need it.
The talked about vacation film. They can't all be winners, and that's the proof
Nope.
of that. I definitely want to look more into this book though, because all of this Marvel, look, I know they say all press is good press. They want to get clicks. They want to get the numbers up. But, like, if we're talking about a reboot, right as the next one's about to start, the next Captain Marvel movie, it just goes to show you how little people give a shit about the upcoming film. And now, I'm not really worried about dunking on Brie Larson. The world has done that enough.
Rachel Zegler has
made over
really
100
damaged her.
videos just on her ass, or her non-existent ass. Maybe that's the wrong turn of phrase for this. But
Rachel Zegler has damaged her because she's more toxic, and Britney Spears is more crazy. So I kind of feel sorry for Brie. She worked so hard for both those titles, and they've been stripped away in the last week.
she worked really hard for a good year straight to make herself like the most unlikable person this side of fandom. And then somebody was intelligent enough to be like, hey, could you, like, be quiet? And then she was quiet. And she was fine. And then she did, like, an appearance on Late Night or did a guest hosting or something like that. And
she did that before being told to be quiet. She did that thing right at the peak of all the controversy, and nobody cared because of the revealing dress she wore.
But what was funny about that, though, is her demeanor on that show was in complete contrast to her demeanor throughout all the marketing for Captain Marvel and everything that followed when the movie came out. Like, you know, she was bubbly, she was charming, she was having a good time, dancing with those. Jamie Foxx was on. It's like, well, who is this? Where was she? Right?
We saw her during 21 Jump Street, during The Room, all the other movies she was promoting beforehand. That's who she was kind of like. As soon as she got into Marvel, for some reason, she went
just insufferable.
unsavory.
Yeah, unsavory, insufferable, whatever other words you want to use. She wasn't likable. We didn't like her. We made it known. This movie is not going to do well. It's going to suffer because, one, there's already existing apathy towards the MCU and superhero films in general. And I don't want that to be confused with superhero burnout, because it's not superhero burnout. There's no superhero fatigue.
Too much of a good thing. Yeah.
Well, there's no superhero fatigue. There's fatigue from bad content. We're sick of bad content, and so we became apathetic towards it now because we don't even care enough to be mad for the most part. Like, every now and then we'll be like, oh, this is really stupid, and go on a rant for 5 minutes, and then we move on at this point, right? Because there just isn't enough for us to even care. It's been so consistently bad. And the movie's going to do horribly, I think, because of that. It doesn't have the benefit of being sandwiched between the biggest cliffhanger and biggest climax and finale in cinematic history.
Well, it was one of the other ones because, again, Ant-Man and the Wasp came between those two movies as well.
Yeah, but Ant-Man and the Wasp wasn't pitched as being integral to knowing what the hell was going to go. Like, Ant-Man and the Wasp could have not come out and nothing changed. Like,
exactly.
That was a completely benign entry in the MCU. The film was fine. I guess it wasn't horrible. I wasn't in love with it. It exists. As we like to say, it was a movie, right? It happened. And then we forgot about it. But Captain Marvel, they gave us a little tease at the end of Infinity War. They said that you're going to need to watch this so that you understand how important and how powerful Carol Danvers is, Captain Marvel is, for the finale to our
If you don't go watch this film, the last 10 years of your life will not make sense, and you will understand nothing for the big finale.
That sounds
Give us your money.
It sounds like an exaggeration, but that's exactly what they said, and that's exactly the story that people bought into, and therefore the movie grossed over $1 billion.
Oh my gosh, how do we make $1 billion? Oh my gosh, people love Captain Marvel. That's the only answer.
No, people got taken for a ride is what happened, and
did,
the only context that mattered was it was real satisfying to see Thanos punch the hell out of the movie.
Which was a reshoot, because, again, they failed to deliver on their own promise and their own premise, because Captain Marvel has had the potential to be a very good movie, and they did nothing with it. Brie Larson had the potential to be a very charming and fun Captain Marvel, but they decided to write her with amnesia because reasons. They shot themselves in the foot because they had they didn't have any synchronicity between what story they were trying to tell and how they were trying to market this film. And as a result, it had a ripple effect that has negatively impacted the MCU ever since, because they completely are separating more and more from their target audience. Now, currently, the MCU is too big to get away with a reboot and survive. I actually did a pitch on my Patreon about how to fix it, which you can go subscribe to there. And I have just learned that that recording is being sent to certain people at Marvel Studios right
Oh,
now.
really? How about that?
Which is shocking to learn, but I don't think they're going to entertain it. But
I just want to put this out there. If that does happen and you get tapped to that, the Soska sisters need to get their hands on Black Widow and Deadpool. I just want to put that out there.
Oh, thanks.
I just want to quickly insert
Well,
that. How would you like to be
future for
Bree? How would you like to be Bree? And someone calls you and says, "Hey, we got some reshoots," and you say, "Oh boy, I want to come do some reshoots. Do I get more time in the movie?" No, we need you to come in because we need the villain to punch you out of the movie. Oh,
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that phone call.
oh, it wasn't just that. There's a number of things, because I remember when they were in early pre-production for Endgame, and there were stories of how Brie wasn't properly given the details of how to integrate with Bruce Banner, with Mark Ruffalo when he's in Hulk, when he's doing the Hulk stuff, because they motion capture him in camera. And every time she's, trying to hold him back or something, is what's one of the scenes, she's putting her arm where his chest is in reality. But when they size him up, it's actually like over his stomach or groin area. And they kept on telling her, you have to raise your hand
now
more.
I understand.
And she did. And there was a whole couple of sequences in there of what, was going on with that character. And when Captain Marvel did not, I mean, it performed well, but that's mostly to anticipatory market, Marvel branding, and then, just what the Golden Open or whatever sort of charity scheme that they threw in there, buying tickets and then empty theaters, which was really
schemes and scams, man.
Which is really messed up. But regardless of that nature, they were still filming Endgame while that movie was coming out. They're doing little pickups and stuff, and they brought in Robert Downey Jr. to say his I Am Iron Man part. And while they were doing that, they decided, hey, let's do a couple of extra little things with Brie Larson's character, since we cut so much of her out of the movie anyways. Let's get her back in for a couple of things. So I think they did the Peter Parker line thing. I think her getting punched was already really in there in the first place anyways, but I mean, it would be nice to say that they added that part in. But yeah, it was a crazy type of production. I remember some of the rumors swirling about, like, oh yeah, they're coming in for pickups on Endgame. It's like, really? Like, isn't it coming out in 8 months? They're still doing it. It's like, yep. It was weird. It was the first time I remember seeing that, because beforehand, Marvel always had some reshoots here and there, but they were really minor stuff, and they rarely required the main cast. And then it wasn't until after Captain Marvel you started hearing more and more of them, and they get escalated more and more.
Well, they swapped the strategy of we'll fix it in post over and over and over, and we see how that's gone.
And then it does not get fixed in post. In fact, it looks worse somehow. Also known as The Flash.
God,
I'd really like to forget that I saw that movie.
I forgot.
I don't even know why I brought it up.
A movie that was somehow
he's wearing a full roll-up.
only made in post.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
It really was a movie only made in post.
Wasn't it Spielberg or Stephen King, one of those Stevens, that said it was like the greatest superhero movie ever and gave it a ton of praise?
Oh, a lot of people in town did that because
everybody was bought
stupid.
to do that.
I mean, listen, it's a lot of them have contracts with Warner Brothers. A lot of them don't want to burn any possible future dealings with them. So yeah, they're going to say whatever they can to get that movie, get people to see that movie as much as possible. But next year,
Hollywood also needed a big W at the box office in terms of like on net. Like people needed people to be excited to go see a movie in the theater. And that hadn't really happened outside of the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Right. It just goes to show you, when Steven Spielberg says Norbit is the romance of our generation, don't pay attention.
It was just so mind-boggling, because all the people that were saying this stuff, like, you need to see this movie. This is the best superhero movie, or one of the best superhero movies. So it's fantastic. It's everything we could hope for. And I'm just looking at the people that are saying this, and I'm like, I don't believe that you believe what's coming out of your mouth right now. Like, I don't. Like, I've seen, and far be it from me to completely criticize something until I've actually seen it, because I've said it before. I believe in remaining intellectually honest. I can critique what I've seen based on trailers or screenshots, things like that. But critiquing something in its totality requires seeing it and experiencing it in its totality, right? I think that's fair to say. And even just based on those things, though, before even seeing the whole thing, I'm just like, that looks really bad. How can you tell me that this is the greatest superhero movie ever, or even in that conversation? I don't believe you. Like, you had guys, I'm pretty sure Spielberg, you had Tom Cruise, and I'm just like, there's no way. I don't believe you.
You know how I think they reconciled it? I think they reconciled it by the fact that it's a story about Barry just trying to save his mom. And it's like, yes, that's part of the story, but he does it in the most incompetent way that you'd never believe he was a CSI, let alone working for the police department or a superhero. And second of all, it's a plot they dropped way too early. And you're clinging on to the one interesting aspect of the movie that is kind of appealing, and ignoring the other 2 hours of nothing really happening and just annoyance being barraged at you constantly. And that's it. And I will disagree with the Soska sisters. I would say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is probably the greatest superhero movie, comic book movie out there.
I'm Team Spider-Man 2.
I mean, listen, I like Spider-Man 2 a lot, but
I love both of those. I would put TMNT, and I'm not just saying this because I love the Soskas, which I do, but TMNT would be, it's like this.
Because TMNT is the most authentic of the Turtles we've ever gotten in live action.
Oh yeah, and they've never come even close to that in any form of media with the Turtles, and they likely never will again.
It's a movie that also angers me because we could get that, and we should have had that again and again, and I have no idea why they have. I mean, I get that the parental groups came out and said, "Get rid of the weapons," and they goofed it up for the second one, but this Michael Bay stuff and all that. I mean, that is a franchise that is obviously ready to explode every single year, and every single year, the holders of it decide, oh, let's just do a Power Rangers thing. Let's just make them look a little different, and that's good enough. It's like, you could have so much freaking money out of TMNT if you would just treat it the right way. But they don't.
Yeah, because, a lot of the argument people say is, these are kids' properties, but for a second, if I may say, when it comes to Ninja Turtles, Transformers, He-Man, and G.I. Joe, those the four, whatever you want to call them, of the 80s, the dudes grew up with those, and go look at the merchandise. There is just as much vintage style or remade Ninja Turtle stuff on the shelves as there is anything else from the new movie. G.I. Joe, they're doing this classified. They're redoing the classic characters. They've done vintage and whatever lines before. Transformers, the same. And He-Man, I mean, they still make vintage-looking He-Man figures. So,
4 years ago, they did a 4-pack of the Turtles. That was it was a 4-pack of the exact same figures that I had when I was 5 or 6 years old. I was like,
dude,
what?
That whole line came back out. I mean, they did. If you go to your local Walmart or Target right now, you can find the movie style figures from the 90s, except these ones aren't rubber. You can find the ones with the pop out shells. They make turtle vans. They make Splinter. They make all this stuff. So the reason I'm bringing all of this merchandise up is, for anyone that would argue Turtles is for kids, this, that, and the other. I get that it's always a perennial kids property that they keep rebooting every couple years.
How many properties are not kids properties that are huge? Think about that for a minute. It's pretty small, the number of franchises that are big that are also not accessible by kids at all. I mean, you're talking about South Park.
Bond.
Yeah, James Bond, although my dad had no problem putting little me in front of all those classic James Bond films.
Same,
and,
good for him. Went
right over my head in terms of those female names. A galore could have been, yeah, but yeah, there's only a few franchises that are not accessible to kids. So I don't buy into that whole thing about it's a kids thing. What are you talking about? No. That, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, all of it is driven by kids as well. But the way that you make it huge is that you make it accessible to adults as well, and then that explodes the whole franchise.
Well, what you do, Pro, you hit the nail on the head there. What you do is you create something that can grow with your audience. And you look at something like Harry Potter, right? Perfect example. J.K. Rowling was brilliant in her marketing plan there. She catered initially to a young audience. We're talking 10, 11 years old, right? And then literally built in within the lore, built in within the story, were the characters, the main characters, aging up a year every new book that released. And so the characters grew with their audience. And that's the same thing applies to a lot of other characters in media. The same thing applies with Spider-Man. That's why it was so important and so great and integral that they had allowed, at least back in the 90s, Peter to grow past some of the issues that he had, marry MJ, and actually start to have new challenges, you know, having to be a good husband on top of his other responsibilities. Maybe we get to set some of the other typical down on his luck Parker stuff aside, right? So we're not just rehashing the same thing over and over. When you do that, what you get is you get kind of an eternal cyclical audience, because you get people who grew up with these, and then what happens? Well, that generation of people that grew up reading the Harry Potter books as they were growing up as kids, now they introduce their kids to them. They get them reading on those books, watching those movies. They do the same, you know, Spider-Man fans growing up would do the same thing with their kids, their children. Star Wars, all of these things, because there's a level of accessibility to a younger audience there. Obviously, if you know anything about comic books are largely not for children and haven't been for a very long time, though there are stories told with those characters that very much are geared towards kids, but they're typically not like the main continuity stuff. Most of it is actually geared towards the people our age, the people with capital, the people that have the money to go into the LCS every single Tuesday or Wednesday and drop $60, $80, $100, $150 on a poll list. Nobody's doing that anymore because there isn't $60 worth of good books coming out every week. But you get my point.
Dude, it's crazy. When I was younger and had very little to no disposable income, I found a way to get comics no matter what. Now that I have disposable income, it's like I don't want comic books anymore. It's so weird. They do it to themselves though, because I guess that audience that is on Twitter, man, they're making Marvel big bucks. It's funny. We brought up earlier Captain Marvel, and someone in the chat said they had to change Rotten Tomatoes for how that movie, or how Rotten Tomatoes operated to protect that movie. Now they have to change Comic-Con because people aren't allowed to see how shitty the Marvel the book sales are anymore. So it's just interesting how they have to keep changing the metrics.
Don't show the numbers that they used to, and it's because they're not hitting the numbers that they used to.
Are those the order numbers, or
if
the
comic books were doing well, then they would want to be shouting it from the rooftops. I mean, why wouldn't you? If you're killing it in sales, of course you want to advertise that, because that gets more eyes on you, right?
Wait a minute. I heard that only good people are going to buy this new Green Lantern comic.
No,
and
I have heard this as well, and I'm telling you right now,
there are lots of good people.
Ain't nobody buying
I
that
believe.
new Green Lantern comic.
Wait a minute. You mean the marketing's all wrong? I can't.
He had no
Marketing
idea how
is
to pitch his
abysmal.
story.
No, he not once did he talk about the story in that. That was the most ridiculous thing.
Hold on,
Well,
I
the
missed this.
question I have is-
What's going on? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, first, the question I have to Andrew's stuff is, so they changed the sales numbers. Now, are those sales to the distributor or sales from the distributor
The
to
numbers
customers?
that they would always show would be to the distributor, not what's leaving. We never get to see the numbers that are actually walking out
Right.
of the
You
store.
get to see
So
what
that's
goes in the
basically
door,
the-
not out the door.
Because here's the thing, a lot of people don't know this. Comic book DC, Marvel, they get their money the second Diamond or Penguin or I forget the name of the other one. There's another distributor currently out there that handles, I think it's DC's books. As soon as they purchase them, Marvel and DC, it's
Yep.
good.
So it's
They
vendor
got
sale.
their money, and that's what they count as their sales, because that's where they got their money. However, then you get the number of those books that were purchased by the distributor. Those then, X number of those get purchased by the local comic book shops, or in some cases, many cases for certain books like Miss Marvel and things like that, by like scholastic groups, libraries. And then there's the numbers that we don't see, which are, okay, how many people are actually walking inside of the stores and walking out with the product?
Wait a minute. How did 80% of these comics end up as learn to speak English in Zimbabwe? What the heck?
Well, I mean, that
Don't
just
they
goes to
also-
the case. If the LCSs are not placing orders at the numbers that are traditionally used with place like Diamond and Penguin. That carries up to DC and Marvel, in which case their sales numbers drop. And I can see why they would not want to release that on a downward turn, especially considering the fact that you're looking at what? The late 90s when we had a plummet of comic book sales. Because
late 90s, we had the comics bust, yeah.
Yep. And they don't want to repeat that again. Or at least they don't want to be exposed at repeating that again.
Right. I mean, I'm pretty sure if we saw the real numbers, it wouldn't look all too dissimilar to that late 90s bust. Because I don't buy it. I don't buy that comics are doing well.
Well,
I'm going to bet that they're running about the same as the High Republic numbers, and I've seen those.
Yeah,
and those are so
real
small.
well, right, bro?
Yeah, I mean, they show up on the New York Times bestsellers list, and then you look at them actually, and you say, "Oh, you get less readers than mid-sized YouTubers get on a daily basis, but you're putting something out for a quarter, and they're doing it daily." So, an average video scores better in terms of participation than the High Republic.
Yeah, nobody's
Don't forget to bring a towel.
Nobody's reading. I'm so high, I don't even know what's going on.
Okay.
Fucking Towley.
Are you going
Fucking
to play
Towley.
Will you play Funky Town for me next?
I mean, I like Funky
Won't
Town.
you take
I can
me
put it on
too?
my speaker.
Copyright strike. Won't you take
know,
me
right?
to
Yeah, no, actually, Jeff, I like you.
demonetized?
And I like your channel. I'm not trying to get you slapped with a copyright.
Well, I appreciate that. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. Some people are indulging in a very Tally-like manner tonight. So, folks, if you are, press 1.
Howdy ho! Please buy the High Republic. It'll help Lucasfilm have a very merry and howdy ho Christmas.
I just can't wait till they drop whatchamacallit, the Acolyte, which is based on the High Republic era,
boy.
and there's no
gosh.
war in it.
No, yeah, it's Star
internal war.
minor conflict.
It's a civil war.
I don't know how much lower the Disney Plus Star Wars series can go with their numbers, but we're gonna find out with that show.
Don't challenge them. They'll give us a Sabine
They're like,
series on Disney
Challenge
Plus.
accepted. And all of a sudden they're gonna do a freaking 6-episode miniseries on one of those weird little turtle guys that showed up in the last couple episodes of Ahsoka.
Oh, the
Right.
escargots. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever the hell they're called. I don't even know.
Crab
Jeff,
people.
That should be a testament to how much I love and respect you, because I binged that show to talk about the finale. And I was
Well, I
like,
appreciate you.
oh, the entire time I was like, oh, look, it's the time of my life that I can't get back. It's flying away.
Why did you binge the show? You just need to watch the last episode because nothing
Because
happens in the first 5.
Like I said earlier, out of a desire to always maintain intellectual honesty for myself, I won't talk about something that I'm ignorant on. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna talk about this thing in its totality. We're gonna do a watch party of the finale. I'm gonna hate my life for a few hours here. Let's just do it.
I wanted Scotty to show up from Star Trek inside Thrawn's ship and say,
I'm giving her all she's got, Captain.
I'm going as slow as I can. She can't go any slower.
She can't give me anymore.
I'm doing the 2/3 of a mile per hour.
That show was the cure for insomnia.
It really
You're not kidding. It actually, I don't sleep worth shit, and it almost put me to sleep. I was like, wow, is this what I need to put on? I can't. I respect myself too much to do that.
I imagine there was a throttle that had like rabbit, turtle, snail, and they went with paralyzed slug for the speed to lift that thing off.
Paralyzed slug. Yeah. Okay.
They can
Slug
still
that
pull
it just-
themselves with their eye stalks, don't you, sir? Don't you be an ableist in the slug community?
Okay.
How dare you?
Paralyzed slug that has just been dunked in a vat of salt. How about that?
Shriveling.
That is the pace with which the plot moved forward. If actually, can we even call it moving forward? Can we even call it a plot?
I'm pretty sure
I mean,
your description is disallowed in many communities of slugs out there. You're not even allowed to say the words that you just said.
Oh, yeah, is that ableist against the slug community?
Yeah.
I feel kind of slimy about that. I'm sorry.
I need a womp womp. Hold on, I have one of those buttons. Hold on, and it features your
Do you
favorite
really?
actor. I do. Where is it?
I did a manual womp womp. You've got a cool, slick, synthesized womp womp womp.
I got one of these.
She was eating blood. Perfect.
I do love my Brie Larson buttons. It's funny, Andrew. Every
There's
time you
one
bring
Brie
up,
Larson button that is superior to all the rest.
is it this one?
You got knocked the fuck out, man!
Yes.
Please tell me it was that.
Yes,
one.
it is. Yes, it is.
Oh. You know, it's interesting how last week, and we won't say any names or anything like that, but we had heard, oh, nobody talks about geek culture stuff anymore. Stop making YouTube videos about it. And all of a sudden, it's like, whoever's listening out there is like, here's all this news. And so it's kind of like back in the zeitgeist again. I just found that so funny. Like, oh, this is a dead topic. Don't anybody make anything.
The irony, right?
Yeah, the irony.
Never
My
doubt
God.
that Disney will give you content. Never doubt them. They're
This is
benevolent
true.
that way.
They are an endless wellspring of content, at least for now.
Until they go out of business, I think they'll do dumb shit to talk about.
That's true.
I'm glad everyone in the chat enjoys my Captain Marvel button.
Chat, you are welcome. I am a generous deity. I totally baited Jeff into that one. Jeff, thank you for playing.
Hey, it's the High Council. We gotta be more fun than her, which is not hard to do. Watching paint dry.
Are we gonna set the bar like that low? Is that what we're doing here? I've got more respect for the show than that.
Oh, I do too. I'm glad the Soska sisters liked them as well. So there we go. All right.
Chat, be blessed.
So, in terms of in terms of our Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, anything else big, like to even think about? Because was it you and Valiant Renegade we had on the channel at the beginning of the year that said these movies probably aren't going to turn a profit this year, and that's kind of been the case?
Boy, that was the truth, eh?
Pro and Valiant right about something? What is
hundreds of what are we up to? I think in the last okay, so I'm a little bit behind. This was accurate maybe 6 weeks ago that the last 12 months had resulted in $1.3 billion in losses for Disney at the box office.
Ooh, everybody in the chat, those of you who are new here, hearing that information might be the most important moment of your lives. But for me, it was a Tuesday.
Well, you know, the funny thing is we actually got quite a bit of confirmation on that out of the latest SEC filing from Disney, where they break down their revenues at a higher resolution than we are used to seeing. And yeah, it does not look good for their theatrical revenues at all. What we saw was, in terms of revenues, they were often releasing 3 and 4 films and getting the revenues that they were used to seeing out of a single film. So then when you consider that the budgets are up, then you can figure out why they're losing on these. Of course, it doesn't help that they have the quality of Quantumania throughout so many of their films. You have to consider that Disney, for so long, you know, if they had a John Carter or they had something else in that vein, you know, that was franchise ending, and that was jump ship and switch over to something else. They've had many John Carters this year. Many.
That's just so weird to think that they'll also push for more of these movies, but we couldn't get another Tron. It's like the last original Disney movie that I kind of liked. So
They're trying to make another Tron, but I don't put much stock into it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
There
they've
was
been
a
spending
point
the
in
last
time
decade
when-
trying to make another Tron.
Yeah.
There was a point in time when if you put out bomb after bomb after bomb, you shifted course.
Well, that's back when you believed in
went
the
a
merit of the
different
audience.
direction. If going that way results in nothing but L's and your book's looking in the red without you cooking them, then you say, we're going to go that way. We're going to do a whole 180 because that way doesn't make money. That way doesn't pay the bills. Let's try something else.
There's a great quote from C.S. Lewis where he says that if you're in the wrong and you try to make progress, you can't. You have to go back to the point in which you chose the wrong direction and then you can go forward. So sometimes
C.S. Lewis, God bless
it
that.
pays to it pays to move backwards in order to go forward. When it comes to Disney and their current situation, yeah, I mean, look at this. You're talking about The Little Mermaid, which should have made, $1 billion plus, made 500 million and lost. You're talking about Strange World. You're talking about Lightyear. You're talking about Ant-Man Quantumania. We can actually keep going.
4.
Yeah, I mean, you can keep going on these, and it doesn't get better. And now the Marvels is going to be here. Here's an example, too. And this is one of the historic box office flops of all time, Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny. If you want to know how badly Disney perceives that film, and perhaps the retailers out there as well, they are not going to release Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny on physical media until after Black Friday. That means to me, so they're releasing it December 5th. Now, why do you release it in time for the holidays, but not on Black Friday? Well, the reason that you don't release it,
to be able to take advantage of Black Friday deals for it, because they would.
Well, okay, so here's what it is. Those the big box retailers and all of the retailers out there, just everybody, they put out these adverts for Black Friday, right? And they only have so much space, and they also only have so much shelf space that they're going to give for their Black Friday sales and Cyber Monday as well.
Mm-hmm.
They probably are not willing to spend any of that space on a dud that's not going to sell, especially when we're at a time where we know that discretionary spending inside families is at the lowest it's been since the pandemic. So they're saying to themselves, why would we let Disney force us to put this thing, on our pages when we have limited space? Why are we going to fill our shelves with this dud when we can fill it with Super Mario instead? It's a no-brainer.
Okay.
So Indy comes out December 5th. It will not be available for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, etc.
I wonder how many people out there are truly sad.
I mean, I don't think there's enough people that went and saw that movie to actually care. And then there's certainly, of that number of people, I don't think there's enough of them willing to spend the $30 on the Blu-ray for it to matter either.
I saw it opening night for the channel. I own Kingdom of the Crystal Skull on every format that it exists, sadly, and I won't even own
I've never heard of
Dial
that
Destiny.
one. When did that one come out? I'm aware of 3 Indiana Jones movies.
Oh, sorry, it's the name of the coaster they give you with every box set.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. That's a funny name for a coaster. Did the Japanese come up with that one? That time I got reincarnated as a coaster?
Yes, the Crystal Skull. No, but I went back. Actually, I won't watch the movie again, but shout out to Retro Blast, and Michael put out a great video on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's longer than the film itself. It's over a 3-hour and 15-minute video. I didn't realize how shitty that movie was. Like, I saw it. I watched it. I reviewed it. There are so many, holes in that movie that I don't suggest you guys go watch the movie again to find the holes, but I suggest you check out the Retro Blasted video to see just how dumb the film is. Because that's what Disney doesn't want. They don't want you to be able to hear people talk about the movie and then just skip it and only hear about the bad parts. They want you to buy it and then experience the disappointment for yourself. That's the Disney way these days, folks. It's like when you go to the theme park and you spend an exorbitant amount of money. You went home kind of miserable. Now you get to watch their movies and go home miserable too. And for the record... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, with Crystal Skull, if you take out the refrigerator part, the first third of that film is really, really good. And then it makes the next 2/3 all the worse.
Well, it lingers. Yeah. That part lingers. And I would say for Dial of Destiny, I know a lot of people enjoyed that opening. I didn't, because I'm like, this is a copy of Indiana Jones. It did not feel like Indiana Jones in the slightest. It's like, let's do the greatest hits of Indiana Jones. Let's do a car chase, a bike chase, a train chase, a struggling, being nearly hanged in a church thing. It's like I've seen this all before in better variations and better copies of Indiana Jones. Why am I seeing this again here?
Well, and it also felt weird because it had Harrison Ford's older, gravelly voice attached to the, younger-looking CGI facade, and that was just off-putting, I thought.
Didn't hold up. Anytime he stared down, you could tell it was not Harrison Ford's 100%. You could see the true profile of the stunt actor in the shot. It's
So that's when you just say, all right, no more. Let it lay to rest.
Well, that's what a lot of entertainment is right now. And I want to make a video on this, like a long form one, but people are tired of cashing in on brands and constantly having them just be remade, retold. Like, I know it's not necessarily for my demographic and audience age group, but I did watch the new Goosebumps, at least part of it, and all they did is cash in on the IP and remake A Nightmare on Elm Street for whatever this new generation is. Like, Pro, in 5 sentences or less, tell me the plot of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
You want a haiku, eh?
Yes, please.
I'm here for this. Hold on.
Listen. You are asking the wrong person though, because you are putting me through a 5-sentence hurdle. ScriptDoctor is a man who is professional in this. I think script should no, not a haiku, but I think you should take the challenge of giving us a 5-sentence synopsis of Nightmare on Elm Street. Can you do it, Script?
A synopsis? Jesus, Nancy Nancy and her friends are being tormented by a murdered serial person.
1 sentence.
Yeah, there we go.
You've got 4 more. No, you've got 4 more. Keep going. We can add some more resolution to this.
Sure. After her friends are killed off one by one, Nancy devises the idea to go into the dream world and pull Freddy into reality to put him out of their misery once and for all.
2 sentences, and don't you dare try to use a semicolon coming up. Don't you do it.
Nancy's mother is the most creative alcoholic in the film, hiding bottles of vodka in towel racks and other parts of the house you'd not otherwise expect it.
3 sentences. Nice callback to towels. It's been a theme here.
And the final sentence is that the reason for this is because the parents of Nancy, many, many, many years ago, are the ones that killed the antagonist, Freddy Krueger, and this is his revenge.
4 sentences. Should have had a spoiler warning. We have upset the crowd.
How dare you?
There are a number of
spoilers.
sequels as a result of this great movie.
Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Number 1. Exclamation mark.
You added the number 1.
That's a typo. How dare you call me out on it?
I understand it. I understand.
I have fat fingers. Ah.
Now, there was a point I was making,
Fingers
and
slipped off
Andrew...
the shift.
Andrew, what's the plot of the new Goosebumps? Just copy everything Script said, minus the whole alcoholic mom.
Oh, that's the best part.
Everything Script said, minus the alcoholic mom.
Okay,
That's
but
the new
somebody's going to help
Goosebumps.
me out with this Goosebumps thing, because I got asked about this on a stream, and I could not remember. Is it Goosebumps, or is it Are You Afraid of the Dark that had Zebo, the clown, in it?
Are
don't
you afraid of
remember.
the dark?
Okay,
Oh,
Are You Afraid of the
Jeff
Dark had
remembers,
Zebo.
apparently.
Okay, so what was the name of the clown, then, in Goosebumps?
There really wasn't an iconic clown. There was Slappy the Dummy, and there were other characters, but
Maybe it was Slappy.
Yeah, he's the
Maybe that's what I was
ventriloquist
trying to
doll.
think of. Yeah. Okay, Slappy the Dummy and Zebo the Clown from Are You Afraid of the Dark, which was easily the most terrifying of all the Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes, and they had to tone it down after that.
Yep.
That
So
show's
clearly,
legit, though.
Jeff has far stronger of a memory of that subsect of our childhood years than I do.
Well, yes,
Because I remember
and-
Goosebumps and I remember Are You Afraid of the Dark, but like insofar as I watched them, and I could tell you that I watched them.
Next
I
up,
can't tell
folks,
you shit
Halloween
about
episodes of the Golden Girls from every season. We're going to put Andrew to the test.
I'd be probably better off with the Jeffersons or Fresh Prince or something like that.
Oh my God, the Jeffersons! I've seen every episode once over a Nick at Night weekend marathon on TV Land, and that's about it.
That's
But,
another one of those things that's like when these people say, oh, we need more black representation. There's not enough black representation on TV and in film. Like, motherfucker. Half the like live action shows that I grew up watching as a kid were all black casts.
Well,
Frickin'
the
Family Matters, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, reruns of the Jeffersons. What are you talking about right now?
Well, the shit everybody wants to complain about, that was all taken care of in the 90s.
It was.
And,
We were over this hurdle.
To answer your question, though, about me and that sect of our childhood, remember, I grew up a horror fan. because of the shows. And then I got a little older and I discovered Tales from the Crypt and The Twilight Zone and much better horror and anthology television series. But I do have a soft spot in my heart for those classic shows. Even the original Goosebumps is hokey as all hell, but I like it.
Oh man, Are You Afraid of the Dark was on for years before Goosebumps finally got a television series.
Yeah, well, I think Are You Afraid of the Dark existed before Goosebumps ever even was published.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I've worked with a bunch of they're now adults, but there were kids on that show on Are You Afraid of the Dark because it was shot in Canada. So it was everybody was talking about that show, and then when Goosebumps hit, I think the biggest one that I remember, the biggest book title was Monster Blood. That kind of really did waves, and I think it was and then there was the Halloween Mask one that was also huge. The Living Mask, I can't remember the title for that one.
The Living Mask.
And it was, I mean, when they start, I remember it was like the late 90s, they said, or mid to late 90s, they were saying, oh yeah, R.L. Stine's going to actually got a deal to actually do the show. And one of the kids who was on Are You Afraid of the Dark was trying to audition for that at the time, but it wasn't, I don't think that one was being shot in Canada. I think he had to go to BC for that.
And unfortunately, none of that was quite as terrifying as Clarissa Explains It All. So they
don't
managed to take over.
You put respect on Melissa Joan Hart's name.
All right.
Open your mouth.
Those of you who've seen the show, then you'll get that reference.
I watched that show a lot with my sister.
Same here. For a little clarification, Are You Afraid of the Dark debuted in 1990, and the first Goosebumps book was published in 1992.
There you go.
So Are You Afraid of the Dark predates it completely, and I think that was the superior horror entertainment for that age group.
But wasn't R.L. Stine, didn't he write Fear Street or something like that predates Goosebumps and was an older, like a teen version of the scary books, and then Goosebumps was for the young kids?
I believe so. Let me look it up real quick. I didn't watch Fear Street, or read Fear Street. I watched the trilogy.
Because R.L. Stine's was already an existing short story novelist before Goosebumps. So yeah, he should have another horror franchise.
Yeah, 1989 is when Fear Street debuted.
Yeah.
There you go, folks. You're better learning through the High Council. Make sure you join us.
It was a great decade for slightly scary children's content.
You know.
But the thing, it worked. I still have vivid memories of the Phone Police episode from Are You Afraid of the Dark? Because that was really cleverly done.
Well,
I remember watch that. You got to watch the melting zombie in the swimming pool. That looks legit too. Like, I mean, the effects are. They even have some decent psychological horror, some
practical effects, man. That's
the amount of algae they had to buy was impressive.
Speaking of like children's horror that's appropriate, Erie, Indiana, single season, really good show. Really well acted.
I thought of Erie, Indiana in forever.
Those child actors were brilliant. There's even actually an episode where Joe Dante acts as himself as a director of the show.
I need to check that one out because I remember watching that show as a kid on television, but I mean, like you said, one season. How many other things were you bombarded with back then? Tons.
Tons.
Yeah. What did Erie, Indiana play on? Was that NBC?
I think it was Fox Kids still, right?
Oh, well, I know it was re-aired on that, but let me check it out. But it has a hell of a cast.
You're right. NBC first.
Yeah, NBC first. It had Justin Shankaro, who played like Simon Holmes, a young little kid at the time. He was a really good actor. Now he's still acting to this day in a lot of other stuff. Still kid related things, a lot of voiceover work, but he hasn't left the industry. He's probably one of the few undamaged child actors out there.
There's not many of those to speak of.
No. But it had John Astin was in it. He was awesome. Archie Hahn, who's a great character actor. He even got a young Tobey Maguire in an episode. Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. Years ago, I was watching a rerun of Roseanne and saw Tobey Maguire, and I'm like, a reason to like this show.
No shit. How fun.
I've grown up and have now liked that show, so Then again, I'm older now, so I get it. So the other topic, something else I wanted to talk about, and believe me, folks, if you had anything you want us to discuss, let us know in the chat. The one thing that's in the title card is some of this Spider-Man 2 news. Now, it's the biggest game that's out right now, but all I see are three things. The game is too short, the characters are ugly, and people are talking about the quote-unquote wokeness. Now, I'm not here to spend 10 minutes bitching about wokeness. I'm not here to spend any minutes bitching about it. But I wanted to ask if you guys, if it had reached your corners of the internet, because that's all I'm seeing right now is the stuff that the developers put into this game, and I just wanted to know if it reached you guys.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to push back a little bit on it being the biggest game out there. I think that they have been very clever in the way they've marketed the statistics here, claiming that it's the fastest PlayStation Studios game to hit 2.5 million, yada yada yada. There were two other games that released during the same week, and they're no small pieces of franchise either. So you had Sonic Superstars release. Sonic has seen a major resurgence among the kiddos. And you also had Mario Wonder come out. Now, Mario Wonder is locked into the Switch, so that keeps its numbers where it will be locked in a little bit. Some people have been a little bit dismissive about Sonic Superstars, saying, well, it should not have released at the same week as these other titles. But I think it's rather genius, because whereas Mario Wonder is only on the Nintendo console, Sonic Superstars is taking all those people who say, oh man, I love that. I wish I was playing Mario. Too bad it's not on Xbox. Too bad it's not on Steam. Too bad it's not on PlayStation. Oh wait, Sonic is cool. I'll get that.
Yeah.
And so I think from the long run, so you're talking about these issues that Spider-Man has, where the characters are less than aesthetic, where there's all kinds of social stuff put in there. I think that in the long run, what you're going to see is Mario Wonder and Sonic Superstars be far more financially successful than Spider-Man 2. Partially, that also has to do with the fact that you got to think, and I don't know Nintendo's internals here, but you got to think that 2D platformers with cartoon graphics must be way cheaper to produce than what we're seeing in Spider-Man 2. Way
there's
cheaper.
No question about that. There's absolutely zero.
So if they're even in the same ballpark as Spider-Man 2, they are phenomenally more profitable.
Yeah, they're outperforming them in terms of on net. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Well, also it's excuse me, it's brilliant to release both Sonic Superstars and Mario Wonder in this general time frame, because we're 2 months away from Christmas, guys. I know everybody's hyped for Halloween next week. I get it. Spooky time. I'm here for it. But those two franchises are geared primarily towards a younger audience.
Yep. Every 12-year-old is going to want them.
They're built towards a younger audience, to where a 12-year-old can reasonably play the games. They might struggle in parts. That's fine. Get good. But the games are geared towards a younger audience. And I got into an argument with somebody in my Discord server the other day regarding the release time for Sega dropping Sonic Superstars around the same time as Mario Wonder. They're like, that was the stupidest thing imaginable. I'm like, why are you acting like parents only buy one game for their kids at Christmas? Like, okay, sure. Reasonably, that can be a thing for families that are on a budget. Totally understand. However, as somebody who spent over a decade working video game specific retail management, I can tell you most parents do not buy just one game for their kids at Christmas. And both of those are fantastic options. And what's more is that this year hasn't seen a heck of a lot of options for that age bracket. So those are both almost guaranteed sells. And to Pro's point, if Nintendo always sells a ton of Switches around Christmas, it's just the way it is. It's like if you stand outside when it's raining, you're going to get wet. If it's near Christmas, Nintendo Switch consoles are going to sell really well. It's the same thing.
What games are parents going to buy this holiday season for their kids when they buy that Switch console?
They're going to be, if it's somebody who's never had a Switch before, there's some guaranteed evergreen titles. You're probably going to see Mario Party. You're probably going to see Mario Kart.
Zelda.
You might see, depending on the age, you might see
Yep.
Zelda. There might be a case where like a parent, like my mom or dad, would be like, I'm gonna buy that one for myself. Like, as somebody again who worked many years in video game retail, that is definitely a thing. We're like, yeah, I'm buying, the Switch for little Susie and Johnny, but I remember playing Zelda back on the SNES. I'm gonna grab that for myself. But aside from that, like to get something new, something fresh, if the people at those stores are doing their jobs, which not all of them do, they're going to be pitching the heck out of Sonic Superstars and Mario Wonder to these parents or grandparents or whatever. And there's a fantastic opportunity for both of those titles to sell gangbusters during the holidays.
Well, Andrew, think about this from a marketing standpoint. Let's say that Sega chose to release Sonic Superstars at the beginning of October instead. If they do that, then it's it. It's a 2D Sonic, and they get the press coverage of a 2D Sonic game. And then it's over once Mario Wonder comes out. But if you release a couple days before Mario Wonder, not only do you get a couple of days of press coverage just on your game, but you also create the marketing of people saying, oh, we're back to the 90s again. It's Sonic versus Mario. Which game's better? And you get all of these comparison articles. And if you're confident in the quality of your game, which Sega seems to think that they are, then what happens there is you expound the coverage for both games as you get all these comparisons. And then that rides you through Black Friday, and it rides you all the way to the holidays. And it may even give you more momentum going into Sonic 3, the movie. So all of this is great. And folks out there, if let's say that you're 25, 35, 45, and you're like, I'm not really into Sonic anymore. That's not on my radar. Da, da, da. Listen, the 5-year-olds, the 6-year-olds, the 7-year-olds, the 8-year-olds, the 9-year-olds, and everything up to 12, 13, 14, they're going to be playing Sonic and Mario this holiday season. These are the hot ones right now. They're hot, hot, hot. And I know that too because we saw the eShop downloads for the first week of both games, and Mario Wonder was number 1. Sonic Superstars came in number 6. And you might say, well, number 6, that's not so great. Well, Mario Kart was there, was at number 2. And then you had Stardust Valley, I think is the name of the game, at number 3. Stardew Valley, which cost very little in comparison. Mm-hmm. So when you started actually looking at it, you said, and this game is only on one console. This game's on all the consoles, so number 6 is pretty good. When you see those games hit those download levels for Europe on the eShop, you know something's happening here.
I'm just amazed that Sonic is still around. Like, I was the first generation for Sonic, and I liked the cartoon and the games were fine, but I just can't believe how, like, Dion's got a kid who's obsessed with Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, he was playing this one, he's like, it's not as good as the other ones, but it's still Sonic. I'm amazed that it's like, going back to what I was saying a minute ago about how brands don't seem to die anymore. When it comes to games, I feel differently about it because I'm always happy to see another Mario. Most Mario games are good, so it's silly to act like they're not. But I'm happy to see a new Mario or a new Zelda. But I'm not always happy to see the new movie stuff. But maybe Hollywood's going to find a way to make audiences excited for sequels like we are with sequels to video games. Then again, there's the other aspect of it where we're in control of the game, and a video game is a very personal experience. It can be, group with multiplayer and stuff like that. But you don't play the game like, Andrew, if we sat down to play Mario Kart, you and I wouldn't tackle any race course the same way. I mean, we may let's say we watch a speedrunner or somebody that's like, do this, do that, and you have all these permutations, and maybe we'll try to follow that. But normally when you sit down to play a game, you never do it. Like with Zelda, the new one. My first goal was to get Link out of the dress because I thought it was weird to, run around in a dress for the game. Other people might need to get the
ratty
sword.
Ass toga.
Yeah, I was like, all right, let's get you some respectable Ocarina of Time gear. So I went over to my friend's house and I hacked this. Well, I didn't really hack it. I just cheated with the clock on the Switch. Yep, he's like, he pulled them out for me because he's got every amiibo. I'm like, dude, I need all your Zelda ones. He's like, no problem. And I spent 2 hours scanning amiibos.
You guys are so sophisticated. I just continue to drive along Moo Moo Meadows on Mario Kart trying to hit every cow I can. I'm so dumb now.
Now I want to play Mario Kart with you, Pro.
But I think you're exactly right, though. Video games are more personal, and you were talking about being surprised that Sonic's still even around. I heard someone once who works in brand loyalty talk about this, and they said that Sonic, what had saved Sonic was that it is genuinely one of the best character designs of all time. Because It has the face and the likability of Mickey Mouse. It's the color blue, which catches the eyes of boys. It has the spikes, which is sort of Bart Simpson-esque, and it has the attitude but still likability. And they said, if you were to run all the things that would make a little boy like something through an AI generator, and it did a phenomenal job, it might spit out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on one side, and it might spit out Sonic on the other. And so I think both of those franchises have been so uneven, and yet they are saved by the original character design. They're just instantly relatable and likable to little boys.
Sonic is also on a high right now, coming off of 2 very successful movies that are both a ton of fun. I recently rewatched them, and I was like, gosh, these movies were there's a lot of heart to them. Like,
did you eat a chili dog while you watched?
I was tempted, and I'm not even exaggerating. I was very tempted, but that would have required me going up to the grocery store, which I didn't feel like doing at whatever it was, 10 p.m. But the movies were very successful. They were received well by fans, by just general audiences, and that's the perfect mix, right? You want the people that are the fans of the thing to enjoy your presentation of the thing. You want those fans to be like, oh yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing.
You want people who like your thing to like the thing you made.
Exactly. You want people who like the thing to like the thing that you made of that thing that they like. And so they were like, hey, thank you for giving us the thing, after they, took the L and were like, yeah, that original design was really bad. We apologize. Give us a few months. We're going to go back to the drawing board. Praise God that they did, because it turned out fantastic. The movie's a ton of fun. There were a couple of dud games leading up to those. However, the most recent release prior to Sonic Superstars that came out I believe it was last year. Yeah, Sonic Frontiers was very good. It was a completely new Sonic experience. It was an open world Sonic game. It still had I should rephrase that. It has an overworld, and then you can go into the different zones and actually play, classic.
I think too, Sonic Mania had a big part. Sonic Mania, which was a game made by fans.
Sonic Mania
had an impact.
Was fantastic in terms of like revitalizing energy in the classic 2D Sonic type games. But there were a couple of releases in between those two, Mania and Frontiers, that were just really poorly received because they were not good games. But yeah, I mean, all it requires is putting out a product of a thing that people like and make sure that it's of quality. How about that?
We're talking to you, Paramount, with your turtles. Get your turtles right, Paramount.
Well, they're making
turtles right.
There. They're making money off the turtles, but they really aren't creating the impact needed with regards to capturing that hype around the turtles. That
exactly
helps makes them again. Sonic is huge. I think their botched character design for the live action film ended up benefiting them, because it was the only criticism that the studios could actually fix, and that's why it happened. Because if they did the trailer and they're like, well, the story doesn't seem right and everything's done, they'd be saying, well, we're stuck. We can't reshoot a movie now this late into release. Yeah. But luckily, the only criticism was, the character design is frightening.
It was horrific. It was so bad. I remember seeing that. And I'm like, what in the actual blue hell did you just put on screen?
But then when I saw the movie, and they had the scene where he picks up the turtle to help it cross the road, and he runs like 200 miles per hour with the turtle, and the turtle has that giant smile on his face. As soon as I saw that, I thought, they got it. This movie's going to kill it with the demographic it needs to.
Fantastic, and it built a lot of goodwill.
But none of that has anything to do with the core issue, which is the fact the movie was already good. The character design was bad. So when you ever want to say, well, oh man, that trailer sucks, why don't they go reshoot it just like they fixed Sonic? It's completely different things. It's apples and oranges. You cannot do
the structure of the first Sonic movie was already solid. It was strong.
It was.
Greatest
which is why
movie
they can't swap out the dirty hippies.
Yeah.
Snow White and the dirty hippies is not the same situation.
Exactly. You cannot compare revamping a post-production special effect with remaking a movie because the trailer doesn't look good. That's the thing, is you have to understand there is nothing that you can do. If you see a bad trailer and be like, well, why can't they remake that like they remade Sonic? It's not the same thing. You'll actually end up you'll rightfully get the studio saying, screw you, telling us to remake a movie after we've already made this and you haven't even seen it yet. Whereas when they did the Sonic thing, it was like, you know what? Yeah, we get why you're upset. Luckily, it's a simple fix. And that's the thing. You can ask for simple fixes through advertising. You cannot ask a revamp. If you saw an authentic trailer of what The Last Jedi was and demanded that they reshoot it because they reshot Sonic, thinking that that's what they did, Disney would behave the exact same way they did to the criticism of The Last Jedi anyways, because that's where it worked. That's how it works out. So appreciate it for what it was. Appreciate that, the studios were able to actually solve a problem that was solvable, and don't bring it up as comparison to every other problem that they could have that any movie could have, because Sonic was able to do something that is essentially, yes, elaborate, but it's no different than just a color correction of your movie. It really
the
is
other thing, Script.
Slightly more complex than that, but it's still like the one, like you
the
said.
principle is what I'm
like-
talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. It's still
The
like the
other
one
thing-
thing that if there was one thing that they had to fix, thank God it was that, right?
Yes.
The other thing is that, with the Sonic trailer, it did the opposite of what you often see, which is you'll see a trailer and people will say, man, why is that trailer so bad? To localize it. I'm talking about Indiana Jones, the Dial of Destiny as an example here.
Sure.
When the first trailers came out, you'll remember there was outcry about Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and she made this comment about capitalism, I believe. And people were like, oh my gosh, why are you doing this? You're killing the movie, right out of the gates on marketing. Well, after we saw the movie, it turns out the trailer makers were geniuses, because they literally took every good thing they possibly could out of a giant pile of excrement. They saved the few corn nuggets they could find, wiped them down, put them out on the plate, and said, here, look, it'll be dandy. And I think that happens often. Sonic was the opposite of it, but I think a lot of times you get mediocre trailers, and then you see the film and go, oh, they actually did really good with that trailer, because there's nothing here to like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've at this point, the Sonic movies, like the next one, Sonic 3, whenever that comes out, I don't know if it's supposed to be next year or the year after, but like that's one of the few movies I'm legitimately looking forward to. Like aside from like part 2 to Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, I'm like, give me Sonic 3.
Yeah, I'm up for it.
They built a lot of goodwill with fans with those movies. Like they did fantastic jobs casting. Tails was spot on. Knuckles, Idris Elba was underratedly hysterical as Knuckles in Sonic 2. Like he's fantastic, and he's got one of those voices that's just like you hear that voice and like, yeah, it's freaking Idris Elba.
And they humiliated the sister-in-law character, which is a running gag for the films. I enjoy it.
Yes, because the sister-in-law is an epic twat. And Jim Carrey, I'm not convinced that, or rather, I should rephrase that. I'm convinced that Jim Carrey was like handed a script, and they were like, yeah, this is kind of the general idea. And then it was like, okay. And then just kind of threw it out and kind of did his own thing for at least a good portion of it, because so much of it just comes off way too like natural, organic, like 90s Jim Carrey funny, like back when he was making his best stuff, that, like The Mask. And it was almost like it was a mix of The Mask and I'm trying to think what other character he played that
Ace
I would
Ventura?
say-
Ventura.
Actually,
Are
a
the
little
other
bit,
two,
a little bit of Mask, a little bit of Ace Ventura, and a little bit of the Grinch. Actually,
Mhm. That's why he needs to be in the fat suit if he comes back for the third.
I heard that he might not be back for the third.
That's what I've heard. But if he does, put him in the fat suit. Let's go.
Yeah,
Full
I would
Robotnik.
honestly be disappointed if he didn't come back, because he's just too freaking hysterical. He's a jackass, but he's hysterical in that movie. He's so good. I was like, this is like, you took as cartoony of a villain as Dr. Eggman, aka Ivo Robotnik. Ivo Kintobor Robotnik, actually, for those of you.
What was the middle name?
Kintobor.
Wow. I think that I know a lot about that franchise, and I did not know that one. That's right. That's right.
I grew up reading all the issues of the comic books. My dad, for Christmas one year, got me unopened copies of issues 0 and number 1 from the 4-issue mini-series that Archie Comics did before it ever became a monthly. Like after those, there was 0, 1, 2, and 3 as the mini-series. Like, okay, if this sells decently enough, we'll do an ongoing. Those sold well enough, then they did an ongoing that restarted at number 1. Little fun fact there for you. But like taking a character as cartoony as Eggman and making it work in live action was, to me, I was like, that's a win in and of itself. Like, the rest of the movie's a blast and a half, but the fact that they made Robotnik work was, I was like, all right, I'm here for it. Like, there are a few times that I can recall having as much fun in a movie theater, like just sitting back, throwing back the popcorn, as watching those two movies in theaters, because like you could tell everybody was just all in. There was a lot of heart. It had to also be a good movie, but you can have on paper a good script and a good cast, but you can tell when some of the cast just isn't in it. Like, it's like, I know you're a really good actor, but you're kind of just phoning it in because your heart isn't in it. You don't actually care about this. This is a paycheck. Vin Diesel. Yeah. and
I've heard stories, man. I'm sure you have too.
And so I'm just like, but that's not the case with the Sonic movies. So just everybody is having a blast, and I love all the characters. They did a fantastic job. Yeah, it's just those movies are fun.
I need to see the second one still.
Really, you haven't seen? Dude, you really do need to rewatch the first and then watch the second.
And eat chili dogs at the same time.
Yes, dude.
Don't
be me. Don't be a faker like me. Actually have chili dogs when you do that.
You know, you Cincinnati people and your Skyline chilies, I tell you.
Have you had it yet?
Yeah, I've had it. I'm not sure I classify it as chili, though. It's its own kind of thing.
So the Saskas in the chat said, Jim Carrey said he's retiring unless someone comes with a great project. Will that project be Sonic 3?
He's
honestly
been saying that years.
that's true, but if that ends up being the case and Sonic 3 is like his swan song, I'm here for it, because for me, it'd be far more important for somebody like Jim Carrey to go out on a high note of a comedic character like that was like him at his best, you know, than for him to do something else. Like he was great in what is it? Not a comedy.
Truman Show?
The Truman Show. Thank you. It's a great movie. But I don't look at that and I'm like, that's freaking Jim Carrey. I look at that and I'm like, this is a really good movie. But when I think of Jim Carrey, I associate him with stuff like The Mask, Bruce Almighty, Dumb and Dumber. You know, like back when comedies were actually funny, not what they are now.
Well, the rumor is that Jim Carrey will entertain returning to the role of Ace Ventura or Fire Marshal Bill if the script is good enough.
Yes! Dude, sorry, fuck Sonic 3. If he goes out with a Fire Marshal Bill movie, holy shit, I will be there day one.
I guess close at some point.
Oh, dude, sign me up for Fire Marshal Bill. Oh, yes.
As long as we don't have to do Dumb and Dumber 2 again, because that was such a disappointment. I mean, it needs to be good. It can't just be a reflection of what once was good.
Exactly. But the fun fact is that with Fire Marshal Bill, there's no facial prosthetic makeup for Jim Carrey when he does that role. He's just him putting that face on himself. So it's already easy. Just got to do his hair.
God. What would that would have to be like a series of vignettes where he just dies.
No, he doesn't die. He survives everything in some sort of weird.
Wasn't there one where he's a floating head at the end?
Is it a floating head? He's been a skeleton, like his entire flesh and muscles have been burned off.
Somebody mentioned Liar in the chat. That was a fantastic movie too.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a really good one.
That was a
Jim Carrey owned the '90s in terms of comedy.
Oh yeah.
Jim Carrey was to the '90s as what Eddie Murphy was to the '80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, now that's a button I wish I could still press here on the channel. Oh, I went to a haunted house, random aside, and they had a piano in the haunted house, and I started playing Axel F.
Nice.
I wasn't supposed to touch the set, but my fingers instantly went to the. Yeah, I was just like dun dun dun, and I was like, I gotta go on. But yeah, it was just there. Because every time I go somewhere that has like a working piano, I will just randomly play that song. So that's my thing, folks. If you're ever out in a Guitar Center or Sam Ash Music and you hear Axel F in the background, it's probably me. Come say hey. I didn't mean to hurt you with that whole Sonic the Hedgehog talk, Andrew. I'm sorry. I know you're very passionate about Sonic. I like Sonic too. I just was a Mario kid, man. So I will watch Sonic. I will get my Skyline. I know you don't like its script as much as Pro, but it's it's a Greek dish we just call chili here, and I will watch. Sonic the Hedgehog
listen,
too.
I like it. I just don't know that it's chili.
I
It's
don't
its own
disagree.
special. Yeah.
it
It's its own thing.
What'd you ask?
Is it Chile?
It's Chile.
Yeah, that's right.
I wonder if they could rebrand and get away with that. Not in Cincinnati. Cincinnati people would be like, "Oh, it's got an accent. It's wrong." So,
Well, I'll tell you why for me Skyline, I'm not that keen on it. Is just because it was talked up so much to me, and then when I went through Cincinnati and picked some up, I was like, this is just okay. So if it had not been talked up by all those crazy Cincinnatians I've met throughout my life, I would have enjoyed it more, I think.
did you get it to go?
I did.
That's the problem.
Oh my gosh. I'm going back now. Cincinnati, ho!
Right
I'll be
now.
right over. We'll go get lunch.
Woohoo! Or I'm sorry, you like Mario. Wahoo! Skyline Chili #1.
They would kill to get Charles Martinet to say that in a fucking commercial.
In that case, how much will they pay me? Let's go. Slap his
Look,
face
they
on
just-
it. Nobody will know the difference.
It's funny. People may think, "Oh, Cincinnati, small area." Not really. Oh, Skyline and Nothing Restaurant. There's like 50 of these damn things, and they're all popular. So Skyline could afford any. They could afford a Super Bowl commercial if they wanted to, but it wouldn't make much sense.
That's big money.
Big money.
Yeah, at least it's not Gold Star. But yeah, we were talking about the Spider-Man stuff,
Spider-Man
Pro,
game. Yeah.
and you were talking about in perspective the numbers aren't that impressive. I looked at numbers. They're like, oh, it sold this many units in 24 hours, but it didn't even sell more than Halo 3, a game that was also a console exclusive, but it also came out 16 years ago. And
What you want to do is,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what you want to do is, you don't want to talk about your first 24-hour stats, because it's not really the first 24-hour stats that are going to make this thing be what it could be. This thing's got to sell all the way through Black Friday, and so we'll find out what it really does. That 2.5 million, they already knew what they were going to get based on pre-orders. There's no way every company out there can figure out based on percentages what they're going to get based on just their pre-order sales. So they knew this days ahead. They had the marketing ready to go. What we want to know is, do these faux pas that we're talking about, Mary Jane looking like she's been on some Mary Jane and perhaps walked out in front of a certain school bus, does that hurt it? Do the dead eye of the characters hurt it? Do the social issues hurt it? That's what we want to know. Do families suddenly step away, or, and this may be even more likely, does the brand of Spider-Man, is it so powerful that families don't care and they buy it no matter?
Well, an interesting thing that I this just popped into my head, Pro, and this actually calls back, it harkens back, we'll say, to a video that you and I did on your channel several months ago about Hogwarts Legacy. And people are forgetting, like, those numbers. Okay, cool. Yeah, good job, I guess. Yeah, we'll see how it pans out, and how, if you plateau there, if it dives off, whatever. The install base for that game is extremely small. Nobody has a PS5. People that have a PS5 that don't just want to play upscaled versions of PS4 games probably bought Spider-Man 2. Some probably because they're legitimately, Spider-Man fans. Played the first game. First game was fantastic. And they're like, cool, play the sequel, right? I love the first game. I've platinumed it twice. However, very few people have a PS5, and there are very few legitimate reasons, unless you're a Sony fanboy, which doesn't count as a legitimate reason, to actually spend the money on that console. It just isn't much there to work with. So
in comparison, let me throw this in so you can have context. I'm not trying to interrupt you. You'll enjoy having this at your disposal. Hogwarts Legacy, the latest numbers we have, and this is out of June, so it sold way more since then. 15 million copies is what we're comparing to.
Yep. And it has yet to release on its second largest potential install base. Its largest install base was the PS4. or rather its largest potential. Its second largest is going to be the Nintendo Switch. And that comes out in a few weeks.
How do you think
Hogwarts
that's
Legacy-
going to run, though, on the Switch after the debacle that was Mortal Kombat?
Well, I've seen footage, and Avalanche, not to go on a Hogwarts Legacy tangent, people know that like it released on PC. And
You'll
on
like
current
your
gen
12 frames per
consoles.
second. Thank you very much.
It released on PC in a not sorry state, but people that weren't running a good piece of hardware, it struggled to run well. Like it took them about 2 weeks, and then they properly optimized it. Like they got to work fast. I'll give them credit where credit's due. It's like, okay, you saw what the issues were, you fixed it quick, good job. Take note of that for next time and work longer on the optimization. However, this is what makes me optimistic for the Switch release, because they pushed back the last gen console releases like PS4 and Xbox One by it was a couple of months, I believe. And when it released on those consoles, it released in a pretty much close to perfect state. There were no massive complaints about performance issues. Like they had to scale back the visual fidelity a little bit, but it's older hardware, right? It's yesterday's news. You're having to make this game that was developed on PCs and current gen hardware. You're having to make that work on last gen hardware, which just isn't as powerful by definition. But they made it work. They made it work really well without sacrificing too much visual fidelity. The game's still like, if you're looking at it through the eyes of like, okay, I'm playing this on a PS4. I know what I should expect out of a good-looking game for this system. It looks good. Very good, even. So, based on that, based on precedent, and then based on the screenshots and a little bit of footage that I've seen for the Switch version, it looks like those extra few months that they said, guys, we hate to do this, but we have to push it back on the Switch a little bit longer. They did that, and I think it's going to pay off. Because while it doesn't look anywhere near as impressive as it does on my PC or on somebody that's running on PS5 or an Xbox Series X, the game looks really good for a game that's on the Switch. You have to define the terms of the hardware you're working with. And you're working with the Switch, which is an underpowered piece of hardware as it is. There are like 2 or 3 games that run at 60 frames per second on that system, one of which being Mario Kart. If this game runs at a reliable or locked 30 FPS, I'll call it a massive win.
Well, I think it's time for Nintendo to release a new console, and
you and a lot of other people.
yeah, I bought the first one 6 years ago. So, Pro, I know you guys.
I just like to play Mario Kart and pretend that I'm Margarine while I do it. That's the best thing ever. Oh, wait a minute. What's this super chat say down here? Do not attempt to race gender swap Butter's voice. Oh, hamburgers. I should never be Margarine then. I'm so sorry, TLG Screwjob. Oh, I'm screwed for good. I'm going to be grounded. Now, I'm never going to go to Bennigan's.
Bennigan's shut down, man.
Poor Butters. What will he do? No Bennigan's.
I used to go to
love that
Bennigan's with
episode.
my dad when we'd go to see movies when I back in Santa Clara.
They had the highest calorie Monte Cristo you could imagine.
And that's exactly what I would order every single time.
Did the vision of Wilford Brimley play in front of your eyes telling you about diabetes?
That's the last thing you ever saw.
I did hear it in the back of my mind a little bit.
Am I the only person that has never been to a Bennigan's? We just
No, I
didn't have
can't
them here.
recall being to one either.
Oh, okay.
They weren't
I
super
thought it was...
widespread. They did have some good freaking food. They shut down, I think, during the pandemic. And
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go look. They were one of a number of different restaurant chains. It's sort of like Carl's Jr. and Hardee's. There are some other examples of that where they're the same restaurants just with different names. Bennigan's was one of those, and I'd have to go look and see what the others were.
See, now I'm just thinking of the Conan O'Brien joke of Bennigan and Brannigan that the character Adam West played in that that pilot that fortunately never got picked up and should have because it was brilliant.
So apparently Bennigan's is still out there. There are very few left, but they are out there.
Okay, I know the one in Santa Clara shut down then.
This would take me a little bit more investigatory work than I can put into it right now. But
yeah, I know you only got a couple of minutes left with
Find
this,
one,
bro.
DM us the address. Me and Jeff will go.
Yes,
Not-
we will.
We'll take a freaking road trip. I'm here for it. Like, Jeff, I'll drive up to where you're at, then we'll drive up to where Script's at, and then we'll drive down to Bennigan's.
Well, now
I
that
like
we
it.
know that Bennigan's is in need, and simultaneous, we're also aware that the South Park fellows have saved Casa Bonita, perhaps it's time for Trey Parker, Matt Stone to get out there and bring back the Bennigan's.
Look, not all heroes wear capes. That's all I'm saying.
That's right.
Now, Pro, I know you got to get going. Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before you head out? Now, folks, the
First
show's
of
not
all,
over.
every one of
Don't
you,
worry.
you're beautiful. I don't care what the mirror says about me or you. You're beautiful.
Especially the Saskas.
But if you'd like to come by and check out some cool content, we're explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve over on the WDW Pro channel, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, each and every day. The Pro Show is live Thursdays, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And yes, I'll be turning on the camera for the very first time this Thursday. It's a spooktacular edition. You will want to tune in. And in the morning, we're talking about something that very few people know about just yet, and that is that South Park is facing major calls for cancellation over the pandering, including from the Canadian government.
Like that's gonna stop them.
Blame Canada.
You know what? I'm very much against the Trudeau government because it's not Canadian.
No, it's more akin to the Soviet Union.
It used to be more genteel in the Great North.
Genteel. There's Pro with another one of them $5 words, man.
Well, it's a boot time to hop out before I start to disappoint as my brain goes foggy. So, gentlemen, thanks for having me aboard, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the show. I will be listening in as I get ready to go on camera for the very first time Thursday. So I will see all of you very soon, I hope.
Always
I'll be
fantastic
there, man.
to see you, sir. You have a great
Thanks
rest
for
of
joining us tonight.
God
Later.
bless.
Script, was it wrong? Okay, since you brought up Canada, obviously, you know, you're there. I was somewhere and somebody was watching a true crime show, and they're like, discussing all the biggest true crime cases from Canada, and I laughed out loud. I just don't think of Canada as this. I know terrible things happen everywhere in the world, but when I saw that was a show, I'm like, why would you make a show about how crime-ridden Canada is? Like, I don't know.
Did
Maybe I
a
have
Mountie
positive
get
perception
knocked
of it.
off his moose or something? Like,
Oh, you don't want to knock a Mountie off the moose.
that's
That'll
dangerous.
upset
That's
both the Mountie and the moose.
that's fighting words right there.
They are one. They are one
They
unit.
are one.
No, Canada does have some crime. Nowhere near as severe as some other densely populated areas, but we do have some. We also have some legendary serial killers, unfortunately. Not many, but some out there. Even one of my friends over on YouTube, Scribelight, covered a true crime situation that happened outside of Toronto, called in a kind of like a rural, not really rural, a pseudo suburb neighborhood called Etobicoke. Sorry, I said Coke. I didn't really live there, so I don't know it too well. But they've got some weird stuff. Canada's a peculiar place. A lot of the people who, when I started going to LA and I started meeting stand-up comics and stuff, they would have bits, especially a few that actually end up moving to Canada. They'd have bits saying, man, look at this. They report every murder in the newspaper. Like, because they can. There's that few of them, yeah, and overall. And the other part too is that when they do occur, there's a surprisingly, I mean, just like the normal statistics in majority of parts of the world, there is a higher statistics of them being solved as opposed to them not being solved. So that's also like a good bonus. But at least that was the norm like a decade ago. Today things are weird. All the crime is happening in Parliament right now.
No. So there's a lot of white collar, or I wouldn't even call it white collar. White collar people actually work and make money. Government just steals. Whatever color you want to associate with, we'll call it red. We'll call it red crime. Fucking communists. Anyway.
Script, the real reason all of those crimes get solved is because of our good friend Brazos. He's always on the job.
Yes,
So.
he is. Oh, every episode takes him up. He's the opposite of the Paul Gross show where he's due south. With a Mountie comes solve crimes in America, Steve Martin's Brazo solves crimes in Canada.
I wish they'd have the nerve to do a full episode that's just a Brazos episode. Like, I would love that.
God, that would be brilliant. I mean, they got really close with like the Brazo reunions episode, and they made fun of woke politics in season 2.
I loved it.
It was brilliant. Oh God, only Murders in the Building, guys. You have to watch it out there in the chat if you haven't already.
Yeah, it's again, I thought it was going to be funny based on the trailer, but like, I don't really have an opinion of Selena Gomez, but I like her character in this show.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that Pro had said before he left about our topic, real quick, before we get into other things, is he was asking if the brand of Spider-Man was too strong for people to care about the wokeness, and I think it is. I think it just
probably is, honestly, amongst normie and general audiences. Yeah,
because your Star Wars audience is very much like, I know Star Wars is universal. I don't fit into like your traditional Star Wars fan and all that stuff, but Spider-Man, whatever they did with it at Marvel, which I don't really like, they've kind of made it into like or maybe it's always been this way and I just fit into that category. It's kind of like an all access character. Everybody likes the character because, you know, I guess subconsciously he's fully covered. Maybe that's
Peter's also supposed to be the everyman, so he's supposed to be relatable to any normal person.
Well, that's where Miles Morales falls apart to me, because I don't think he's as relatable, especially like when I was growing up. Like, he's almost too, I know he's not perfect, but he's just almost too perfect at times. And he's more of a wish fulfillment character than like a character that you can look to.
They try to make him without flaws, basically, and without a lot of it. Like, it's not he's without issues in terms of things that he struggles with, but it's not like with Peter. Like, anybody, you know, anybody that hasn't been fed from a silver spoon all their life can understand, like, struggling with, you know, maintaining a job sometimes, making rent, putting food on the table for a table of one, you know, maintaining a girlfriend, you know, having some sort of a social life, keeping up with classes, things like that. And Peter fit right into that, where it's like most people could relate with at least one, usually multiple, and in a lot of cases, all of those things at once. And that's what makes Peter Parker such a fantastic character. He's the everyman. And that's that any man or woman can relate to him easily. It doesn't matter that he's a straight white guy underneath that suit. It's who he is as a person and what he struggles with that makes literally anybody. Like, you trying to tell me the black people didn't like Spider-Man before Miles Morales? Really? You're gonna try and tell me on that? Like, I can tell you that you're a flat out bald faced liar if you try and say that to me, right?
I'll use harsher words.
Yeah, you could do that too.
I'm just saying, me personally, if some of you are like, nobody that's not white has liked Spider-Man ever, I would look at them and probably want to smack that person.
Yeah,
like,
because you know that they're full of shit, right? Everybody can relate to Spider-Man. That's the point. That's what makes him so universally endearing. And that's because that was the point behind the character. It was supposed to be a character. He does all these amazing, spectacular things, you know, when he's in the suit. But underneath the suit, he's just a regular guy with regular shit that he has to deal with every single day. And a lot of times he fails to deal with it.
Yeah.
And everybody can relate to that.
And, you know, I'm glad you brought up the relatability, because I do feel like some of the modern politics, while it won't really tank sales or affect sales, I don't really think it's, you know, that big of a problem overall for them. I do think it dates the game in an incredibly bad way. Imagine if you played Spider-Man on the PS2 or Spider-Man 2 on that generation of console, and it was filled with, like, 9/11 propaganda or, like, war or like things that were only a thing at the time. Like, I feel like when you put these modern-day politics into your product, you just date it in a bad way. Like, imagine if
you lock it into a box, right?
Yes.
Actually, I think in the Spider-Man 2 PS2 game, there was a memorial for the trade towers in there, because they weren't replaced yet.
Yeah.
Well, I don't consider that like
the dated stuff that you'll
get.
That's
That's the closest thing. It's not like putting in like modern, and that made sense because it was for the first movie, right?
They came down before the first movie debuted.
yeah, they had to tweak some things in the
They
movie.
just had to cut that scene. That was part of
Yeah.
the montage, really. Is
Yeah, exactly. And that I don't qualify that as the same thing as putting in actual identity politics, slapping Black Lives Matter, murals all over the place, putting in things like there's this stupid line that he says. This isn't a direct quote, but it's something to the effect of, like there's a gun club or something like that in at one place in the city. And Peter makes this remark of, I wish they'd take this gun club down and replace it with like a compliments club or something like that.
Well, that's kind of lame.
It's extremely lame. And then they add things like, they screw with the with a Latin language, they screw with the Spanish language and alter the Spanish word for doctor. They, put in genderless bathrooms, do all this stuff. They did this in the comics a year or 2 years ago where they made Felicia Harding, Black Cat. They wound up doing the same thing in the game. There's never been a thing. They also, on top of that, and honestly, this is probably the most egregious thing because, like, all that stuff, I don't say I'd forgive it. I find it extremely annoying and extremely stupid. But then on top of that, spoiler alert for people who haven't played the game. If you don't know, Venom's in the game. It's kind of been the whole advertising gimmick for the thing. So if you didn't know that, I don't know what to tell you. But Venom's in the game, and he looks fantastic. But the Venom symbiote... I can't believe they did this. The Venom symbiote at one point covers MJ and turns her into Scream.
Huh?
Which is a completely different symbiote.
Yeah.
For anybody that's read the comics. Anybody that's read Maximum Carnage, anybody that's read Venom Lethal Protector, anybody that's read literally any of the comics that has to do with the symbiotes. That's not a thing. Yeah. Those are completely separate entities.
So I have one.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. You got a question. Something else.
So my one question is, do all the pride flags, the BLM graffiti, all that stuff, is that not what's currently all over New York City today as we're talking about this? Because if so, it's kind of authentic. And now with regards to the other stuff, I think Peter Parker making a comment like that is not Peter Parker-ish. I like the only valid criticisms I ever heard of like gun clubs in actual downtown in central New York City is that they really should be located outside of the city because they usually are high targets for robbery. Like, that's kind of, I mean, it doesn't matter that it's a gun club. People are going to find out when there's not going to be as many people in there and go in there and take as much as they can so that they can do what they want with it inside the city and not have to, do an hour drive outside or what have you. Mm-hmm. I think the language stuff, that the abuse to the Latin and Spanish languages is uncalled for. They shouldn't be doing that type of stuff. It's stupid.
Peruvian descent here. Let me tell you, Spanish language don't work like that.
Yeah. So that's the other part too. However, I mean, again, as I said, if they're doing like a digital scan of New York the way that they did for the original Spider-Man games way back when, it's there. You can have it. It's going to date you, yeah, absolutely, but it's there, and it's really what I'm like to call part of, and it's not the sole reason why, of course, but it's what I call part of the decade of decadence, because for the last 8 to 10 years so far, it's really just been a gutting of decency, respect, understanding, and discipline when it comes to these types of things. And people have just been it's been a car just without a driver barreling down the street, hitting all these other innocent people with things that are far more complex and than we as a species have ever tried to understand before. And it doesn't feel, and the fuel is not through compassion or authenticity, it's through propaganda and ideology.
It's through proselytization. And it's neither the place and vehicle with which to try and get, I don't think putting that message across is the thing to do to begin with, but it's also not the place to do it. But also, if you're going to do it, there are ways to get across universal messaging. Like, Jeff, you said it perfectly earlier. Like, in the 90s, we were over this crap. And what do we have in the 90s? Like, we had the X-Men animated series, which tackled so many societal issues, but in a very broad, general sense, that it taught it as a universal lesson to kids watching, like, hey, treat people with respect no matter what the hell they look like.
Yeah,
no matter
dude, Mr.
what their
Rogers taught
background.
that shit.
Yeah, but that is universally applicable, and that's a good thing. You should treat people with respect regardless of what their background is or regardless of what they look like. That's a no-brainer. That's our default setting, right? Children don't learn racism because for whatever reason they're not exposed to the proper messaging. They're actually taught to differentiate between racism, between skin colors, because it's pointed out to them. By default, you put a bunch of kids on a playground, they're gonna just play with each other.
Yeah. Only the kid that stinks
That's what
is
they
the one
do.
that's avoided. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
If one of the kids smells, yeah, or if one of the kids is being a little jackass, then yeah, they'll probably avoid him or her.
It's usually the kid
But-
that smells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Otherwise, like, the default settings, everybody's just gonna play together. Everybody just wants to have a fun time, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that was something that was the kind of universal, proper messaging, for lack of a better term. There was just a life lesson of how you should go through life that could be applicable to anyone and everyone. And that's not a problem, because that's actually good. Again, like you said, Jeff, Mr. Rogers taught us that shit. But so what am I going to do? Give Mr. Rogers grief? No, he was doing a good thing. It's when you subcategorize it and all of a sudden you're just pointing to one specific thing, and that's the hyper focus. It's hyper emphasized. That's all that matters. All of a sudden, when you do that, you're actually literally excluding everyone else, because all of a sudden nobody else matters in the way that they do it in modern media. That's not the way to do it. Go back, look at the 90s X-Men animated series, look at other shows that came out around that time. And
Look at other films too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I roll my eyes. That's how I want to say it, because I don't take offense. I don't get bothered. But I always roll my eyes when I see a lot of, like, black-centered films talking about, we're going to right the wrongs, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's like, oh, you want to tell your version of this story? That shit's been done for decades. Like, these modern it's like, I just don't like the filmmakers or anybody that makes entertainment that thinks they're changing the world with their piece of work, when we can pull up 10 examples of, you know, that. It's like, oh, it's so progressive to have this. Not really, you know, a black dude was the lead in Night of the Living Dead, or other films that are out there. Oh, but we got this and that. Look, it goes back to my point I made at the beginning of the show, how we're stuck in a loop every week. It's the Arrested Development, we talk about script regularly. We're stuck in a loop, and this is part of the loop we're stuck in, where we need to go back and recongratulate ourselves for any progress we've made. And this is not just entertainment, this is the bigger picture. But what we do in the process is we denigrate, that's not the right word, but we disrespect what came before. And, you know, like, Richard Roundtree just died right before the show went on the air. The guy played Shaft. He was Shaft, you didn't just play him. But my point is, like, if they bring out, like, you know, Idris Elba in some action role, they're like, oh, that's the first black action hero ever. That's as dumb as when Jennifer Lawrence said she was the first female action star. And all of this across the board, it just makes me not want to consume a lot of entertainment. And it boils back into Spider-Man 2, the game. You know, somebody in the chat had said, it doesn't matter about dating, it matters about dividing your audience. And I don't agree with everything they put in the game. Like, I don't have an issue with the black cat being bisexual, because, you know, if they never mind, I'm not going to get into that. In the 90s, it was a different time, you know. Like they say in Hot Fuzz, a little girl on girls, no problem. But it's like everything has to have that. And the thing I guess I take the most umbrage with is the fucking Mary Jane segment. Not the whole, she's a different symbiote. Why are you forced, and it's not about women or men, it's why are you forced to take a step away from the thing you like and pay for to play as her who sucks? Or you play as a deaf black girl who has to run through these missions. It's like, nobody buys these games. If you want your bullshit simulators, go to Steam and play those. We want to play a game where it's like,
I want to swing around New York as Spider-Man. That is why I give you my money.
So
it's a Tobey Maguire costume.
It's a compulsive mini game as opposed to an optional one.
Yeah, it's not even
That's
optional.
even worse. Because if it's optional, at least it's optional. Like, yeah, I've done everything in the game. Maybe I'll go paint graffiti on the side of a wall.
If I want to get all the achievements or trophies or something. Yeah.
That's different. No, I don't disagree with you on that, Jeff. I think it's silly. I mean, listen, I've in the information that you sent me before the show, I did peruse it, and I had a lot of. I saw it went down a rabbit hole. A lot of people commented on the whole, Spider-Man saves a guy, and the guy says, "Oh man, my boyfriend thinks you're awesome." And I'm like, that's like the least controversial aspect ever, because if you've been to New York, there's a lot of gay people that live out there. That's fine.
That's a completely benign line. Yeah,
exactly.
That's whatever.
That's
That's not like, I don't equate that to changing the sexuality of an established character.
Neither do I. I think that's
Joe
like
Blow, and you happen to save his life, and he makes that comment. Cool. All right, buddy. I'm glad I did the hero thing. I saved you. You didn't die. That's the whole point of me being here. Go home.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, Peter Parker would jokingly say, "Give him a kiss for me," and just swing off, because he said that to women and men that he saved. It was like, yeah, my girlfriend or my wife loves you, whatever. He's like, yeah, give him a kiss for me, and then because he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, it's a friendly thing,
right?
But the thing is that that type of thing is more of the norm. Now, if they went way more elaborate on it and they said and then they gave you a whole list of adjectives before they said their significant other, what they were, then that'd be, getting into propaganda territory, like egregious propaganda territory. My transracial, trans whatever, blah, 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 partner.
Oh,
I mean, come on, like you're clearly pointing something out as opposed to a casual things like, yes, the other part, that line is nothing. The character model work is atrocious. I think that's subjective.
One of the most egregious things to me is what they did with MJ.
Yeah.
Like, MJ, Mary Jane Watson, is I get they were going closer to the Ultimate Spider-Man route, where MJ was just kind of this, pretty girl, and she wanted to become a reporter, blah, 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 blah. I was never down with that. I didn't like it. Mary Jane Watson is supposed to be classic girl next door. She's supposed to be a bombshell, a smoke show. She's supposed to be that thing that Peter gets to internally point to and being like, everything else in my life is completely screwed up. I am exhausted from fighting Doc Ock, then Venom, then Carnage, then Vulture, then Shocker and Rhino at the same time, yada, yada, yada. But then I get to go home to her. There's one thing in my life that is right, and somehow I am punching way above my weight class here, but I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to be thankful for it. But instead, they went the plain Jane route. I will say, her character model in the first Spider-Man Insomniac game, she was cute. She wasn't unattractive. She wasn't ugly. Still was not Mary Jane Watson. Like I said, Mary Jane Watson is a smoke show. She wasn't that. And in the new game, she's just unattractive.
This desire in Western entertainment to change beauty standards through digital entertainment is bullshit to me. Yeah. I absolutely hate it, because I'm an artist. I'm trained, you're taught to look for the beautiful stuff. And of course, beauty is subjective. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. We all know that phrase. We all know the Twilight Zone episode. Everything is subjective. But there are universal things that, let's say, let's break it down like this. We know for a fact that the majority of gamers of these types of games are men. Years ago, they did a study about female gamers, and they included mobile data, so that kind of changed the whole gaming landscape. Oh, and I know that women play video games, but it's not about women playing video games. They go against what people like naturally, and they go out of their way to make these strong female characters manly looking or weird looking. I'm not saying you need to have boobs hanging out in Spider-Man. But there is a market for games like Dead or Alive or Street Fighter or these other games that you have that factor. But, a conventionally attractive woman who's a supermodel, and yes, people say, oh, she's not supposed to be that hot. I literally read somebody post, she's just a normie that Peter Parker thinks is hot. I'm like, and I didn't really say anything besides, you don't read a lot, do you?
Excuse the fuck out of me?
Yeah, that was my response, because I'm like, I wanted to say you're clearly not a golfer, but you clearly wouldn't have understood that Big Lebowski reference. But, no, seriously, I was just like, it's not about needing to nerd out for, everything to be accurate. But if you're going to have such a strong opinion or a hot take, at least know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah,
and that's
at least
everybody.
not be an ignoramus.
You're not going to have me walk into a defense center and help strategize the next, coup or military, whatever you're going to. I'm not that guy. I'm also not a medical advisor, so I can't sit and tell you, that's this or that. That's not me. So don't get these people to do the same thing when they're not qualified to talk about it. I do think the internet leads to that, and you get people that work. Look, I'm not saying you need to be passionate to be passionate about Spider-Man to work on a Spider-Man game, because game development is something completely different. But if you're going to talk about this to defend bullshit, at least know what you're talking about. That's one of the biggest problems we have with a lot of this. Like, you can lump it back to Star Wars or Marvel. You say the phrase normie, I say the phrase, I use normie too. But my point is, they're targeting people that don't like it and pushing people out that do. And of course, you always want to grow. And you always want to expand.
Sure.
And you always want to attract new viewers and gamers and all this stuff. But there's a limit. And a lot of these big properties are so mired in this crap. I personally don't buy into anything that falls into these categories. I didn't buy Starfield. I didn't even play it for free. I'm not getting a PS5 to play Spider-Man. I'll stick with PS4 and Spider-Man 1. I mean, I can fly around or swing around as Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in a semi-realistic New York. I'm satisfied.
Yeah,
but
it's a fantastic game.
Oh, dude, whatever year that game came out, that's my game of the year. Not Red Dead Redemption
2018.
2. Sorry. Yeah, I'm voting Spider-Man, not Red Dead Redemption 2. Why? I never finished Red Dead because it was so dense. But Jeff, there's everything to do in the world. That's awesome.
That's
but
too much to do for somebody that's got a full-time job.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I work at home. I don't give a shit. I can't just sit down and turn on a PlayStation like when people are like, "Oh, I just played Spider-Man over the weekend and now I got to do this, and that." And it's like, I grew up as that kid that wanted to do nothing but play video games. But as an adult, there's more to life than video games. Like, I love gaming. Believe me, I buy the shit. I stay up to date, but I just don't want to spend 50 fucking hours on a game anymore. Hell, I cut half the shit in Zelda.
Like you said, they're not making this stuff geared towards fans who actually like it. It's people who don't know what the hell they're talking about, making it for people that don't actually like it in the first place. Here's the thing. You want to pull in the normie audience, the general audience? That's the easiest thing in the world. Literally, all you have to do is appease the core demographic of people that by default would, as long as it's a decent product, like and buy your shit. Appease them, because that gets them talking about it. And once they're talking about it and it's the hot topic, all of a sudden the normies get invested. Why are they invested? It's not because they're Spider-Man fans. It's not because they're Star Wars fans. It's because it's the hot topic conversation and they feel a need, a compulsion to be part of that conversation. The moment that it becomes the big hot topic, that's when they get invested. The moment it's no longer the hot topic of conversation, that's when they leave because they no longer care. The thing that they cared about wasn't Spider-Man. The thing that they cared about wasn't Star Wars. The thing that they cared about was being involved in the hot topic of conversation. That's why geek culture became pop culture, because it's the popular thing to talk about. And what happens when you chase away your core demographic, to the people that will actually hype the stuff up and buy your product, buy the toys, buy the t-shirt, see the movie several times in theaters, and buy the big ass overpriced big gulps, huh? All right. And the fucking the tub, you're welcome. The tub for your popcorn, that's us. That's the fans. Everybody else will fall in line afterwards as long as we're happy. You know what happens if you chase us away? Eventually, they leave too, and you're left with piss all. That's what they keep doing. That's what we're seeing in the MCU. That's why we see the apathy. That's why nobody cares now. Hell, us fans hardly even care enough to bitch about it for longer than a couple hours, right? And then we move on to the next thing because it's not worth our time anymore.
Well,
They're making this stuff. They're making this stuff for people who don't actually like it. They're making it for people who just want to be part of a conversation. And unfortunately, that ends up degrading the things that we love.
Okay, so what you're
We're left
describing,
with the ashes.
what you're describing is, and pardon my French, even though it's fine on your show, it's not something I normally say out myself. You're describing starfuckers, and worst case, they're starfuckers with an STD. So when they finally fuck the star, they leave behind, an STD, which taints the very thing that made us like that person that elevated them to becoming a star. That is exactly what it is, right down there. And as soon as they've had their way with them, and their popularity starts to decline, they're out, just like starfuckers are.
Yeah.
I like the way you described that.
Though. I liked your 15-second description better than my 2-minute rant. That was better.
It's from years and years of pitching movies.
I have an issue with brevity, okay? I come from Tolkien.
No worries, man.
So Tolkien was one of the first things that I read as a kid. I was like 8 years old. So I'm used to being long-winded. But
I still haven't read it. I one day need to read it.
I will send you a link to the audiobooks while you're drawing or something.
You can do that, but I will send you a link to a bookstore that sells authentic Lord of the Rings stuff that has not been rewritten, edited, or any sort of weird, doesn't have any of the Rings of Power branding on it. So you can.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. I was just taking a sip of water.
MJ rant pretty much over. It makes me sad when they do that. Because they act like, okay, maybe rant isn't entirely over. I lied. They act like women don't want to play as attractive characters too. The Saskas are in the chat. They're gamers. They game. They said they don't have a problem looking at attractive characters on the screen, as they well shouldn't have a problem with looking at attractive characters on the screen. Perfect example. Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. That character was designed specifically so that men would want to be with her and women would want to be her. They would want men to be playing the game, talking like back on the original like PS1 versions of the games, and want to nurture this character, want to care for this character, want to like do cool shit and make sure that this character, Lara, makes it to the end of the game, right? There's a protective aspect to that. That's instinctive, right? That's appealing to our masculine natural proclivity to wanting to protect those around us that we care about. And then for the women that were playing, they wanted them to feel like empowered while they're playing as Lara. They're doing all this cool shit, right? They're doing all these backflips and somersaults and, all this cool acrobatic stuff while shooting dinosaurs and solving puzzles and stealing treasure and doing all this cool stuff and making it to the end of the game. It's universally relatable, but relatable and something you can be attached to for different reasons. Lara Croft is an attractive character. I know a lot of female gamers who love Lara Croft. Not because she's some frumpy-looking plain Jane or, I don't know, whatever insert body positivity narrative in here. No, but because she's a badass character that they just liked playing as. And they get to live out a fantasy by doing so.
Now, the one thing I'll add to that, too, is I also know girls that just are like, I like her boobs. Like, I've had friends that like Power Girl because she's busty. Or the weird physical, not weird, the normal physical traits that people would gravitate towards. I've heard women talk about it, too. And they're married and, all this other stuff. So I think it stems from the problem we have in society where we don't have a big problem or a big threat. So we look for little things to pick apart. And we all want to sound intelligent, and these people want to sound more intelligent than they truly are. So they worry about the world's greatest problems that aren't problems. And that's why we find ourselves dealing with people who pick apart traditional culture. Because traditional culture, popular culture, whatever you want to call it, or however you want to classify it, it's something that it's been universally accepted. It brings people together. It's a language we all speak, and we all understand it. And every time I see more of this Spider-Man style stuff come out, I don't think it's a culture clash. I don't think it's necessarily a culture clash or essentially generational shift. I just think it's people that believe something that the masses don't, or want to push for something that most people are like ambivalent towards, or just, slightly against. And it just kind of creates an ugly vacuum of, I don't know, bullshit. So... And yes, I'm with the Soskas right here. Let girls be hot and dudes be jacked. It's a fantasy. It's an idea we dream of.
This is why I loved 90s and early 2000s comics, for all of their faults as well, because there's a lot of stupid crap that they did in there. But they were just unafraid to have the chicks be hotter than the sun and the dudes be just complete, like, they would have cuts on cuts in places I didn't know you could have cuts. And it's like, oh, that's unrealistic. Where are organs? Have you ever looked at a male character from a 90s comic? Like,
He has too many organs.
Where does that, what is that muscle? What do you even call that? Where is that? I've never seen that. Who cares? It looks cool. And you know what most people did? Well, shoot. Like, if they're looking at it that way, like, I guess I better hit the gym. Shit. Right? Like, people didn't care back then. All of this, like, body positivity stuff and being anti-attractive characters is...
Well, it's gotten too anti-attractive, but it started with anorexic actors being cast in roles that they really should have just been eating more at craft services, because they weren't thin because they were starving artists. They were thin because they thought that would actually get them in. And for some reason, there's too large of a percentage of casting directors and, oddly enough, producers that felt the rail thin female form is what they wanted to put on screen, completely forgetting, like, there's a lot of beautiful women out there that also managed to learn how to act and do so properly. You go take a look at the Xena Warrior Princess that series. There's a ton of women that not only do they know how to act, but they've got curves and muscles that still retain femininity. And then you go 15 years later, and you're looking at stuff that's either on CW or NBC and some of the procedurals, and you've got these female characters who are so rail thin that if you looked at them from behind, you thought they're a little boy with long hair at a playground as opposed to an actual full-figured woman.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
To add to that too, as an artist, like, I refuse to draw, I guess, whatever the modern I can't call it the modern desire because people don't give a shit. The real people that consume this stuff don't care about
it would
these things.
sell, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I refuse to look at. Beauty is subjective, but, like, even in Wokebusters, which has a cartoonier style, I refuse to do, like, I mean, look, all the women have a certain similar body types. I like what I like. I put it in my art. And art is a broad term, but video games are art, comics are art.
One of my favorite artists, J. Scott Campbell, all of his female characters that he draws are based off of two things: classic Disney princesses and his own wife. There's nothing wrong with drawing what you like.
Dude, when I draw, like, my warm-up stuff, it's always based on real people. Now, I will say I was that kid in the 90s that would look at these comic books and go, what is this? And I would look for shit that looked more realistic. Like, I don't like to jump on dogpile on him because everybody does, but, like, I don't like Rob Liefeld artwork at all.
Liefeld's not my cup of tea. He's not my cup of tea. I was a Michael Turner, J. Scott Campbell, a Mark Silvestri, Will Sportagio, Jim Lee guy. Like,
I was a Jim Lee
Ramos
guy,
too.
But I like old books. Like, I was looking at John Buscema's first published work the other day and thinking to myself, man, even for his first published whatever, this looks great. And it looks better than the shit that comes out today. Like, I've always been in the weird, I won't call it a weird minority. I like different stuff. Only, like, 90s Extreme that I ever get into was 90s Extreme Spider-Man, when his rib cage and then his waist was like a fucking toothpick. I'm like, all right, that's not physically real, but whatever. Todd McFarlane drew him with a lumpy ass, and so, it is what it is.
It's true. It's true.
And a lot of the flared ribs, I remember that on all the characters. They had these flared rib flare going on. It's like, what? That's unhealthy posture for these superheroes.
But, bro, definition, it's the 90s. We gotta have fucking ripped. Talk about stuff that's dated. There's old X-Men where the guys are wearing, like, Daisy Duke jean shorts that are cut off and, like, half t-shirts, and I'm like, man, this is so old. Like, the shit that they wore in the 80s X-Men comics feel more current than this stuff. It was extreme.
I know what you're talking about. Shit.
Like, are they at a car wash? Nope, they're just hanging out on Xavier property.
Yep, this is just how we hang around the school.
Yeah. I'm always a proponent, like, folks, this is with my own books, too, like, I like traditional stuff that's I won't put it easy to read in a pejorative phrase, but, like, visual clarity is my number one rule. You need to know what's going on a page without any dialogue. If you have to read a page, I don't think you've like, and that's the only way you can understand what's going on. Then I will say you have absolutely failed. Like flat out. I understand that certain things need dialogue to work. It's a medium. It's a visual medium that has that, and the writing to deal with it. But for
You should
example,
be able to get the general idea of a story in a comic book just by looking at the art.
yeah, because let's say for Spider-Man needs to swing onto a building, land on the rooftop, and then go fight some villains. You shouldn't need to read the witty dialogue. That adds to the character. I'm not advocating you take it out, but you should be able to have a clear Spider-Man coming down.
Yeah.
I hated in the 90s when they do a double-page spread of like this really gangly hero, and it was just like 15 word balloons. Oh no, I got to get to Aunt May's house before dinner, but Mary Jane's still mad at me, and that's why she's back to smoking, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, find a different way. I'm very, I'm not, what's the right word? I'm not,
It's your classic Marvel.
You're upset with Peter Parker acting like a bitch. That's why.
yeah, that's what it is.
There's that, but you're also classic Marvel method, where it's like the art should tell the story first and foremost.
Yes, and mostly yes, a little no. It just is my comment on, like, I hate when I buy a comic and it's literally just splash page after splash page after splash page with very minimal dialogue or very minimal story. I buy it because it's a narrative. And I understand people say, well, just read a book. I don't want to read a book. I want to read a good comic book. And I understand that these guys, I'm one of these people that trains to do this stuff, but you got to have more than just like I'll go back to Rob Liefeld. It's just like random action panel and crap. And that was cool then, but I think that style of comic it's very archaic and fun to look at, but I hate when they try to replicate it today. Because you need to buy 6 issues to get a story. I'm a firm believer you need to buy 1 issue to get a story. Do I want you to come back for the sequels or the follow-ups? Of course. But I just can't get behind, like, nothing. Like, you talk about empty calories. These are empty comic books. A lot of these books are very empty. So
that's why I really liked of like the 90s writers Doug Mensch when he tackled some Batman stories, because even though he'd have some four-part series, each issue had a beginning, middle, and end that led into the next subsequent issue. Like it could do a one and done if you wanted to, but you didn't want to because you wanted to actually see what was going to happen next, but you knew what was happening in that initial stuff. I'm a big believer when it comes to comic book writing that while the images should drive the eye from page to page, the dialogue has to complement the image as well. So you have to get something. The only reason you really should have some dialogue in there is if it's something that you can't physically draw on top of that. And that usually requires like, so say for instance, you have a person's, you animate a face and it's in a certain way. Well, anyone could perceive that emotion, a different emotion from that. So you use the dialogue to specify the type of emotion that image is representing based on what the artist and writer have decided. Otherwise, you have that effect, which is escaping me at the moment, where you can look at this, look at the same reaction, and then on the left side and on the right hand side, you have different objects of what that person is looking at. And each elicits a different type of response from you as an audience member. So that's where you have to find that symbiotic relationship where you want to make all the dialogue count and be as important as the art, but you cannot have the dialogue dominate the art because art is what's driving that particular medium,
and that's
more
the
so
thing.
than the words.
It is a first and foremost visual medium. That's why I'll say I will read a comic with a decent story but stellar art over a comic with a stellar story but crap art any day, because it's first and foremost a visual medium, and you can do both. It's not like it's mutually exclusive at all. But if I'm presented with the choice, I'm going to go with the one that's going to be more visually stimulating. That being said, you're right. The dialogue should not overpower, should not supersede the art on the page. Because again, keep hammering this home, visual medium first and foremost. There are a lot of writers that will be very dialogue heavy. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You said something very important, Script, which was not wasting your space, making use of the page real estate that you have.
Oh yeah.
And that can apply to both art and to dialogue. Somebody that I bring up as an example for wasted real estate on a page for a comic book, the shit stained Tom King. He does this thing where he likes to, I like to think that he likes to think that he is the next Alan Moore in his head, because you know how in Watchmen he did that 9-panel just symmetrical box layout on a page. It was iconic for that because he used it sparingly and it worked with what he did with it. Tom King, this is how he uses it. You ready for this? He'll have that exact same panel layout, and then he'll have the character facing like this, dialogue bubble, that character art, copy and pasted for all 9 of those panels, and the dialogue bubble just changes.
That's
Yeah.
bullshit. That
That is
You know what's funny?
that is
Robert
a waste.
Robert Kirkland made fun of that in a couple of issues of his Invincible series, like just as a meta joke, and it was brilliant.
Good, because
But-
it's a horseshit waste of real estate in a comic book. And when Tom King does it, I don't know why they keep pairing amazing artists with Tom King. Maybe it's because they realize Tom King is dog shit and they have to have like a good artist on his book to excuse his bullshit, which it doesn't, unfortunately. But like for Heroes in Crisis, which was the absolute worst event in DC Comics history, and that's counting Identity Crisis and 0 Hour Crisis in Time, both of which are very bad, and Convergence, also kind of bad. They had him paired with Clay Mann, who is an absolute stellar artist. His art is killer, out of this world. I'd kill to have him over the Rippaverse, honestly. But his art is wasted because he would constantly, in every single issue of this event, have at least 1, sometimes 2 or 3 pages, just like what I described to you.
Don't feel too bad for the artist, though. He gets paid a single page rate to draw 1 image, and then they Photoshop it across. So
Yes.
it's a win for him. That's an easy work
Sure.
day. That dude is happy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but still, it's a waste of just a stellar talent, and it just completely throws out the window the point of comic books. And you can have like sparingly, you can have a dialogue heavy panel or a dialogue heavy page here or there, as long as it's not superseding and overpowering the art on the page. It has to make sense, just like Script said. It has to be used sparingly. It has to be used in a way that adds, that elevates the art that's on the page, not that overpowers it. You can't do that with comic books. It's a visual medium. If you want more words on the page to matter than the art on the page, go read a book.
Yeah.
Well,
I
traditional
don't
book.
disagree.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. Tom King has compared himself to some of the best in the industry, and when I mocked him for it, he blocked me on Twitter. But he's compared himself not just to Alan Moore, but Frank Miller. He also compared himself to Denny O'Neil.
Oh,
And-
wow, that's
Oh,
a
God.
laugh. Because I
And I'm
like
like-
his work way more than I like Alan Moore's work. I don't actually like most of Alan Moore's work, to be honest. That might catch me some heat,
Alan Moore's
but
got a
it's high
particular-
counsel, and I do that sometimes.
But no, that's fine because Alan Moore has a flavor, and sometimes it works really well with the right character, and sometimes it doesn't work at all.
yes,
And
Agreed.
also he's a nut job. Alan Moore is a
Oh,
nut
God,
job.
yes.
he is a nutcase and a half.
I have opinions on Alan Moore that are similar to yours, Andrew. I like Watchmen. I like some of his bigger stuff, but he's not my favorite guy.
I think he
as
told
you-
a good story with Watchmen, but I can call it a good story and still not like it personally.
The weird part about Watchmen for me is I hate the coloring. And so I only will read Watchmen in the black and white edition. It's a weird thing to say,
Interesting.
but like I think Dave Gibbons is one of the all-time greats, but that color palette they chose for Watchmen is ugly to me, and I
63
don't
palette,
like looking
yeah.
at it. I don't know what it is. I don't have any aversion to other color in comic books, but that just makes me like, I don't know, not sick, but I'm just like, this is ugly. Like, it's like if you go into a room that has like, I don't know, puke green carpet and brown walls, you're like, ugh, what is this? That's how I feel about the Watchmen coloring that strongly. So,
All right.
he's not my favorite though. Like, there's nothing from Alan Moore on my top 10 list, maybe even my top 20 list. I read enough books that I can maybe pick out single issues of my favorite stuff beyond just like going to the store and going, oh, I like this trade paperback. No, I'm not here to knock people. If you're reading comics, awesome. I don't care how you read them. But there's more than just the big names. And this Tom King guy is a jabroni to me. He's the one that took Batman to the Ultra and cucked him out, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
he's the guy that did that. He also turned Wally West into a mass murderer, which made me want to choke him out. And it was so bad that modern DC recognized it was bad, at which point they retconned it no fewer than 3 times in the span of a year.
Or is Tom King your Dan Slott?
Probably worse.
Oh, well, I don't really.
I know how much you hate Dan Slott.
Yeah, I would never cause him
Look,
actual
I
physical
know
harm, but I'd
how
love to throw a
much you
pie in
hate-
his face at a convention.
I know how much you hate Dan Slott, and I can't really blame you
He'd
for
eat
it.
that pie afterwards.
Tom
You know,
King,
I would get him
hate
back.
more than anyone in comics. The
Well-
Saskas, as they so often do, because they are lovely and they are wonderful, just raised my mood by simply saying Chris Claremont is the GOAT. Yes, he is. Amen.
I'm not going to argue that the X-Men aren't even my favorite book, but when he writes it, or when he wrote it, those are my like.
That
dude,
was
I obsessed
heyday
with that
Marvel.
podcast. Yeah, across the board, all their books were good. Like, their books range from pretty good to amazing. Like, X-Men was their best book in the 80s. Spider-Man was damn good. Iron Man had some good stuff. Daredevil was maybe that was his best decade, arguably, when he had Frank Miller on it. Like,
That's why That's why it was such a big deal when all those guys that were in charge of those books on the art side left.
oh yeah,
When you had Mark Silvestri and Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane, Will Spertatio, all these guys, Rob Liefeld, you had these guys be like, hey, like it was originally 7 guys. Am I remember that correctly? 7 guys for the original Image group.
are you including Jim Valentino,
Yeah, you had Valentino. You had also
McFarlane,
Larson. That's who I was forgetting. And I think there was one other. We had those guys, and they were like, we account for like the lion's share of all of the sales at Marvel. Like the vast majority, like overwhelming majority. We're talking like I'm just gonna throw a number out there because it'll sound crazy, but it's not unreasonable. I'm talking like those handful of guys accounted for like 80% of the sales at Marvel because they were all on the books that were doing the bulk of the sales and bulk of the numbers for Marvel. And it's because their art was fantastic. It was something completely new. And they were like, you know what? Let's do our own thing. And you know, some were more successful than others when they formed Image. But that just speaks to like the power that they had as artists there, which I always found funny. And there's an interview, a documentary that McFarlane did one time, which I always love watching McFarlane talk about, you know, the Image years and like the business side of stuff. It's super interesting. The guy is super smart, and what he doesn't know, he learns. Like, and that to me, that's like, if you there are very few individuals that have the capacity as well as the drive to fill in their own gaps in their skill set. They're like, I don't know this thing. You know what? I'm going to change that. I'm going to learn this thing. And that was Todd. And he talks about how they left Marvel and they said on the way out the door, bye, you know, we're going to go do our own thing. And then they walked over, not in the literal sense, but they went over to DC just to tell them, hey, we left them because of this. We're not working for you either. We just want to let you know that we're doing our own thing over here. Like that is like, that's Vince McMahon walking out of the back, you know, stones the size of kumquats, right? Like you're just,
they're grapefruits.
You give 0. Okay, fine, grapefruits. 0 Fs, right? 0. Like that is Stone's hitherto unseen in that industry, and is wild. I have so much respect for those guys. Obviously, some of it fell apart. Some of the guys wound up stop producing content because all of a sudden they get a check that has so many zeros that they've never seen this money in their life. I'm going to go in the Bahamas and check out and not answer phone calls or emails or faxes for, you know, a few weeks. Like, what are you talking about? Why aren't you answering my calls? You have a book to make. No, I just made 6 figures off of one book. I'm chilling.
Just say Rob Liefeld. That's who you mean. Just say it. It's not like he's going to come on the channel and go, "Hey, guys, I don't like what you said about me. That's not true."
I would
I'm not here to
actually,
disparage him.
as much shit as I give Liefeld's art, I would love to actually have a legitimate sit-down conversation with the man and just ask him, like, what his frame of mind, like, not disrespectfully at all, like, wanting to legitimately understand his frame of mind. Like, obviously he was a young kid. He was like, I think he was like in his early 20s.
Yeah, he was like 24.
Yeah, he was a kid, right? And so you see that much money, you're like, shoot, I don't have to work another day of my life. Spoiler alert, yeah, you do. The government takes half of that when there are that many zeros attached to it. But still, like, I would love to have that conversation and also try and get into, like, okay, so, like, I get there was a lot of exaggerated anatomy back in the 90s, and I was cool with the majority of it. But what the actual blue hell was that Captain America piece, man?
Oh, dude, have you not looked at Liefeld's face? He's cross-eyed.
Is he really?
I mean, something's up with his eyes when I look at him. I'm like, he's not looking in the right direction.
I've never looked at a photo of him and thought of him as cross-eyed.
Maybe they photoshopped it out, but I've seen a couple of videos of him, and I'm like, where are his eyes looking? Because they don't look normal. Like, for a human being, he does not look like he has normal eyes. But I have listened to him talk about stuff on the comic book industry, and I think he's really quite clever and very knowledgeable of how it works and functions. And
he has a lot of takes on Twitter where I'm like, yeah, you actually kind of get it.
Well, he's on my short list of people I want to have on the channel in the future, because, like, it's so... I hate talking about comic books with people who don't know who Jack Kirby is. It's not like I am an acolyte of Jack Kirby. It's like, if you can't tell me who the person with the biggest turnout in history is, right, I don't think we're talking about the same thing. Yeah, it's like, you know... and like I always say to people, too, we're talking about comic books. We're not talking about an encyclopedia. We're not talking about academic work that might be boring to you. We're talking about entertainment. And yeah, it might not be your cup of tea, but we're talking about fun shit. It's not like I'm quizzing you on... I don't know, every brigadier general or some dumb shit like that you might not care about. So that's why Rob Liefeld's high on my list, because he always talks about the classics, because he's that last generation of guys that interacted with the first generation of guys. And so that he is one of the people that will carry on that. So I don't even know if there really has been the next generation, because the Image guys are still very relevant and people still want to buy their stuff. And of course there are big comic book names, but I can't think of 5 modern versions of the Image guys, because the Image guys are still there. They're still, Jim Lee is still a big deal. So it is what it is. I don't even remember how we got onto this part of the topic, but Rob Liefeld, did you see how much he was charging for his stuff at the comic show up in New York?
No.
It was like, I believe it was $40 or $60 for just an autograph.
That's a little pricey.
Most guys that are well known will sign for free, but a limited amount. And so it's like, if you take a Jim Lee book to Jim Lee, I think he'll sign 2 things for you. And I'm not saying you need to do everything for free because you're a businessman. I get that. I'm not here to knock the hustle, but it's just like the prices he wanted for the stuff at the New York Comic Con. I was like, how is this real? Like, so, I don't know.
And also,
I get it, he's a capitalist.
Hurt for cash?
he co-created Deadpool.
I know. He's
rich. He's
cashing checks every week.
Yeah, Rob, I think that's what bothers me is, like, the big celebrities want to charge, like, exorbitant amounts. Oh, it's my name. Like, I was at a thing, I think it was Chris Evans was at one, and I think his was, like, Chris Evans, Tom Holland, and a couple other people that were, like, big at the time, or were charging like hundreds and hundreds of dollars for an autograph. I'm like, if I was in the biggest movie of all time, and this is just me, but it's like, fly me in, put me up, and buy my food, and I'm coming to hang out with the fans. I figure these people already paid me tons, and I get it, you can always make more, you want to make more, understand that in business, but like, if you're an actor, this isn't part of your business, this is part of like your human relations, your PR. So I think these bigger names that they never have to work a day in their life again, I don't know, I think they should charge less. Or like, I find it weird if like Robert Downey Jr. charges you $500 for an autograph, but the dude who played like General Veers is like $40. Like, I'd rather go pay for him. I don't need to meet Robert Downey Jr. I don't know. I have a
the
different
question
view
I would
on
have is that,
conventions.
well, one of the things I know is that with Robert Downey Jr., when he charges certain things for autographs, most of that money goes to some sort of like charitable endeavor. I don't know whether that's the case with Chris Evans or Tom Holland or any of the other guys, but that's usually whenever I see 3-digit prices for autographs or photos or something, I usually try to figure out, is that all going to them, or is there a reason that they're charging that much? Because usually,
Yeah, if
you're
it's
looking at
going to
maybe
a charity or something
Yeah,
like that, like
usually
a
it's
cause,
like,
like if it's going like St. Jude's or something
20
like
to
that.
$50 or something is usually the average that I remember seeing. And the only ones I know that charge that default are the ones that unfortunately live on the convention circuit, where that is where they make their money, because they're not working in the industry anymore for whatever reason, be it political or be it to the fact that they've aged out of certain aspects, or they just don't want to do the actual grind, which is, finding work as opposed to the reward of doing the work. Like right now, Chris Evans, he's cheap, he's affordable. We could get him for like $1.5 million.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah,
Jeff, there you go. We
that's
get Chris
very
Evans,
cheap in
$1.5 million.
Hollywood.
My only question is, what would I do? Like, what would I hire Chris Evans to play? He can't play Captain America anymore.
Chris Evans, he wouldn't be my ideal cast, but he would be a better cast for Barry Allen than anybody that they've had do it so far.
Yeah, he's up there.
Because he can play the kind of very down-to-earth, classic Americana, man's man type of character. He wouldn't be my first pick at all, but I'd pick him over Ezra Miller any day of the week and 6 times on Sunday.
I'm going to ask you to resend me your list of the Flash stuff, because I need to catch up on the Flash. Every time you talk about him, I go, it's like when you look at those redacted documents from the government and it's just a big black lines. It's like when you talk about the Flash, my brain goes, I have no frame of reference for this. And then so I listen, I pay attention, but I can't, like, if Script were to start talking about, I don't know, an old Ditko issue of Spider-Man, I could visualize it in my head because I've read it probably 5 times. Definitely 5 times.
It's
weird, man.
Ditko, then yeah, definitely at least 5.
He's not my favorite, but I can't stop looking at his art. Last thing I'll say before we get into the messages, you guys will both find this funny. So you're both aware of Ayn Rand, right, and her objectivism viewpoint.
Yeah.
So Steve Ditko is an acolyte of hers, to the point where he would annoy other Marvel artists. I don't know if you guys know this, but Adam Warlock, that character that was in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 over the summer, Jack Kirby created him to make fun of Steve Ditko's views. So if you read the original version of him, he's making fun of all this objectivism stuff, and I love it. I was like, I believe that is why Steve Ditko had the life he chose to have. Like, he could have had more. He could have been, I don't know, a bigger name, even though he's a big name. But I
could have relished a bit more of what he achieved. Yeah.
I think he was too bitter, and then his views
he
on
probably
objectivism
wouldn't have
kept him
been as
from it.
overshadowed by Stan.
No, I believe, I'm not. Spider-Man was too big of a character at the time to get away with not crediting everybody. So when the first movie comes out, you got Steve Ditko and Stan Lee's name on the film, but that could have been Steve Ditko's time to shine if he wanted to back in 2002. Come out, be like, oh, this is my side of the story, and then he would have been just as revered as a pop culture icon as other creators. Not Stan Lee level, but he would have got his moment. And I'm not saying he wants that, but I feel like there's a point where you can have the wrongs of the past righted by just embracing, I guess, forgiveness or stuff like that. And Ditko just was such a weird dude. I don't know. That's what my takeaway from Spider-Man is. Spider-Man's a cool character, and I love the creation of him, but man, Steve Ditko is just a guy that I don't think I'd like flat out, at all. And so if I was a fellow artist, I probably too would have made characters to make fun of him.
Oh, dude, I've heard a number of stories of people meeting Steve Ditko and asking him advice about art, and the people all expecting him to talk about comics, and he actually talks about French painters and real high class, highbrow, revered artists to study and what he liked, and they would all say that it was so disappointing he didn't want to talk about comics at all. It's that's the thing.
That's the thing, though.
Did comics, he did comics, but he liked the higher brow of art. That was my understanding of the stories I heard about Ditko. And
Whereas Stan Lee actually loved this stuff. Now in his later years, when he was getting paraded around, basically like a puppet and a cash cow by Marvel, it's a different matter. I've heard some stories of backroom conversations he's had with individuals. It's like, well, sounds to me like Stan was kind of freaking over it at that point. But there's no question that Stan actually loved the medium, loved the content.
Yep, and you know what? Even though he wasn't working on comics when I was growing up, I knew Stan Lee, and I knew his voice and that excitement, and I'd want to read, hey there, true believers, and all that shit.
Yeah.
I was a true believer. When Stan Lee died, I remember that day. I was bummed. Like, there are a few celebrity deaths where I'll text people, and when I'm like, Stan Lee died, I was like, texting Dion, I'm like, man, Stan Lee died. He's like, no fucking way. And then we just went back and forth talking about comics. So, I look like this. I liked how John Romita approached it. He embraced his comic book fame. He embraced, what he contributed. He talked about it openly. He tried to help the next generation and all this stuff. So, I don't know. Besides for being my favorite artist.
He also tried to raise the red flag of warning that single issue serials might start going the way of the dinosaur, and it might move towards like collected editions. What are we seeing right now?
Collected editions out the ass, dude.
He was the canary in the coal mine. Nobody wanted to listen.
I'm still that weird contrarian guy. I want my single issues.
I've got my single issues. I haven't bought a new DC or Marvel comic in a few years. Those are in my long and short boxes in storage. I would buy the collected editions for rereads. I get the new issue on New Comic Book Day, read it once, goes back in the bag and board, into the box, set aside for the collection. I'll get the collected edition for when I want to do the rereads. And then if I like it enough, get the digital collected edition for like when I'm traveling. If I'm, flying to go see my parents or something like that, then I can reread, I don't know, Blackest Night or Flash Rebirth or whatever on my tablet on the plane.
The way I'll do it is a single issue, and if it's an old book, I don't even open it, and I'll leave it in the packaging and read the board in the bag, and I'll read a reprint or get the collected edition. But with Spider-Man, I've now taken it to the next level where I get these artist editions that have the scans of the original art in the original size. So it's like, that's how I scale it up from original book to shit. I'd love to own original art. That's next on my list. I think once I get out of collecting toys, I'll
the artist edition. Those are like, shoot, they're like that, right?
Oh, they're huge. Well, the Jim Lee one is huge.
I've got artist edition right here of Michael Turner's Superman, Batman, Supergirl book.
I think we're roughly the same size.
It's all his pencils. Like, it's the full 6-issue arc, but all strictly pencils.
Nice.
And then in the back, it has every single piece of known DC art that he ever did. This is the pride and joy of my comic book collection. Like, anybody that knows me knows that this is one of my favorite stories in DC, The Return of Supergirl. Getting this was like the biggest deal to me. This was a bigger deal than me having a signed copy, which I do. I have a signed and graded copy of the first issue of this arc. I've got it slabbed. But this was a huge deal for me, getting this. This was my Christmas present to myself last year. Pride and joy in my collection.
Speaking of big books, this is the biggest book I own, I think.
Oh, nice.
And I'm not a small guy at all, but this is huge. Here's a Nintendo Switch for scale. With the Joy-Cons in it. So there you go, folks. There's a Nintendo Switch. And this is my favorite book because it's all like the inked work from back in the day. That's at the scale they drew it. So to me, I buy this and study it like, oh, okay, that's how you achieve that effect, or that's how you do that stuff.
Beautiful. Oh, that's so cool. You can write that off as a business expense.
Exactly why I bought it.
And also why he put it on camera.
Yep. Believe me, I love to talk about all my collectibles. I'll do another stream where I pull down these Indiana Jones figures that came in the mail 2 weeks ago, and I have no interest in them because the movie was that bad.
Well,
And these
maybe
are
we
based
gotta
on the
maybe we
classic
gotta do
ones.
a toy or a collectible stream where we just show off some of our favorite pieces and maybe not so favorite pieces, and just talk about them, why we bought them, why we liked them, where they sit scale wise on in our collection and whatnot, and then you get to write that shit off.
Let's do that for sure.
I'm here for it.
By the way, folks, I will be on the Articulated Chad channel coming up. I think it's next Wednesday. Is it 7? I'll give you the exact time. I'll get back with Chad. But Chad's a friend, and he wanted me to come on and talk about stuff because our toy videos are... It's great. Like, I'll go on... I don't even go to 4chan, but somebody tagged me in a post. They're, like, talking about the Star Wars decline, and they're using video reference, and it's ours. I'm like, cool. So our damn toy videos just keep on rolling. So check me out in the Toy Sphere, folks. I'm going to be going on more channels and doing more crossovers and all kinds of fun stuff. So, the Soska sisters want a toy stream, so there we go.
All right. I guess we got to do. Look, if the Soskas are saying they want it, then we must provide.
If you guys hook me up with another season of Elevator, then I will gladly give you any stream.
All right, ladies, you heard it. we got to get to work. Elevator, new season.
Let me design the poster too. We'll do a crossover print. You guys will sign it. We'll take it to cons. There we go.
Hell yeah. Horror Hound, here you come.
Yeah, shit. That's where I saw him. God, how many years ago was that? 2015? 16? I don't remember. It's been years. I've worked a lot of these shows. But, yeah, we'll have to do one of these very soon because clearly we're passionate about that stuff. And, guys, I got a lot of new stuff that I've been getting ready for the channel. So, folks, I'm finishing up this act of Wokebusters. The last act is mostly done, so I'm almost in just the touch-ups, and then we can get back to more stuff. But if you want more WCBS, all you got to do is let me know. Join us each and every time we live stream. Join us on other channels, and follow us on Twitter and all these other great platforms. But we're not done yet. It's time to check in with the audience.
What you guys been saying in the chat?
Script on a number between 1 and 69. Please pick a number, and we'll press that button to transition into that segment.
31.
31. Here we go.
We lost something.
A lot.
Another happy landing.
Here's, speaking of happy,
Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't.
we never get to press that one, so I like that one a lot. I made that for Dion.
Why did I just see Frosk?
Because, you know, sometimes you feel like a nut and sometimes you don't. Clearly with her, you don't.
Okay. I need eye bleach after seeing Frost because I heard her voice screaming about how men bad and how attractive people bad.
You know, you're never going to hear me complain about, oh man, Chris Hemsworth is in great shape. We should what the hell is this stupid crap? Like,
I don't understand, dude. I remember seeing the first Thor and being like, shit, man. Okay, like maybe I'll hit the gym today. Like, shit.
Usually my reaction is I want to either work out harder to be like a superhero, or I go, wow, they actually look like the comic books. So,
and there's that as well. It's like, damn, okay, cool, good job. Like, whether you did it all natural or you hit some of the juice, good on you. Like, there's no question about it. I'm straighter than an Oliver Queen arrow, but the man did a good job.
I just like the way you describe that. I'm straighter than an Oliver Queen arrow.
I gotta relate it back to comic books somehow.
Of course. All roads lead to art. Aurora Uplink says, Star Wars film, miserable scumbucket smuggler is stuck hiding from Imperials after his ship cargo is found. Adventure to get off world in a new starship or alone. Old one. I would watch this movie if it starred Han Solo. Like, when you guys write stories like this, I go, make it a Han Solo story, and I'm there. Like, you know how Warner Brothers
Hey, Jeff,
does
what's
their...
your favorite Star Wars character?
Friggin' Dan in the Modal Nodes.
Oh, Wow.
Oh,
that was
not
the
Dak?
answer that I expected.
No, just all the modal nodes.
It's
By the
not
way, folks,
BB-8.
yeah, I'd kick the shit out of that droid if I... Honestly, people take those to conventions, and my first instinct is to kick it because it looks like a soccer ball. And I'm just like, ugh, that's expensive, and I'm not that kind of guy.
Same, and not even because I don't like BB-8 because he's an R2-D2 knockoff, like the Dollar General version, but because I played soccer for 10 years, and so I'm like, oh shit, can't do that.
How to get kicked out of a con in 5 minutes or less.
Right?
That's what I should write a
Little
book.
Susie's over there crying because you kicked her $200 BB-8 replica.
Maybe your dad should have better taste and not buy you bullshit. That's what I'm going to say.
Maybe you should bitch at your dad for not getting you R2 instead, huh? Yeah, think about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to kick an R2-D2. I'll hurt my foot.
Oh, yeah,
Plus
that would be
it's,
unfortunate.
Sejorjan says, don't cry, Caffeinated Wolf. I enjoy your video with WDW Pro last Tuesday while Jeff was in Vegas last week.
Oh, you're saying don't cry because I was upset that we didn't have a show last week. That's the context. I got you. I'm glad, Cesario, Japan, that you checked out that video. That was a fun video to record. I always am blessed every time Pro invites me to record with him. It's an honor. I sincerely appreciate him. He does great work over there.
Let's see. Last Tuesday at this time, when you guys were just finishing up what the show would be, I was at dinner. It was great. I love Las Vegas. Even won some money gambling, so I really couldn't have asked for anything more.
Hey, right on. Came out net positive?
I mean, other shit was way more expensive, but just from the gambling portion, yes.
Gambling
But
specific.
the actual, like, trip money, nah, it's Vegas. It's not a cheap trip at all. It's just like...
Yeah, you're not coming out of the whole trip on a net positive. Unless you win, like, big.
Yeah. It's
Right
like,
on, man. I'm glad you had a good birthday, brother.
Do I need $40 drinks at dinner? Yes. Do I need a second one? Yes.
I mean,
sorry, that was breakfast. I apologize.
Was it tasty? Was it good?
Oh.
Did it do the job?
Dude, it's okay. I get it every time.
Everyone's got a price.
Get me the scorpion from the pepper mill, and you will get a sloshed Jeff. After 2 of them, man, I was feeling good. I missed vacation already. Rob Brandt says, finally, after 13 years, Alan Wake 2 is out Friday. Looks like it'll be a survival horror weekend.
Oh, shit. I completely forgot that was even coming out.
I didn't even know it was coming out until right now.
Yeah.
And I was cool with the first Alan Wake. Am I going to buy this one? Maybe one day. I'll give it a shot. I like
Look
games.
and see if it's on Game Pass first.
If it's on Game Pass, I'll download it soon. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for being a member as well as Sejorjan. And Xavier to God, who sends in a very generous super chat, who says, first, Disney buys Pixar to save their asses because they couldn't keep up with them or DreamWorks. Then they bought Marvel because it was popular, and they bought Star Wars and went behind George Lucas's back. So what you're saying is, Disney, how to take a sure thing and ruin it. Got it.
Yep.
I can't believe how quickly they do it, too, guys. Like,
10 years is their average, yeah.
Well, they did it really quickly with Star Wars. Marvel, it took them longer. They actually had a good formula going on for about a decade. And then all of it suddenly fell off the cliff. It wasn't even like a slow degradation. It was just, we're riding high, Endgame, biggest grossing movie of all time, until James Cameron was like, hey, we're going to put Avatar in theaters again because everyone wants to see that again. Apparently enough people did. Which shocked me, but whatever. All of a sudden, phase 4 and 5 dive.
I like that phase dive. That's what it is.
I can't take credit for that. I'm gonna credit Pro for that one.
Oh, okay. Well, I will tell Pro I enjoyed it then, but I like that you said it too. Thank you, though, Xavier to God. I agree that they can't do anything right with these properties. But that just leaves the door open for guys like me or the good people at the Rippaverse to create more characters and properties to fill those voids, because entertainment's not going anywhere.
No,
at all.
Still want to be entertained.
People exist. They will always want to be entertained.
Exactly. And these people have left the door open for guys like you, Jeff, who are creating Wokebusters. You did Stealing Solo. I'm sure you got other projects rattling around in that brain of yours. And
I got a big superhero in the future.
Eric. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We got ISOM, Alpha Core coming out this fall by Chuck freaking Dixon. We've got the Saska sisters writing Yaira, and they've got big plans for that character. I know. I've read the book. I'm editing the book. I'm so excited. Like, I'm excited for comic books, none of which are DC and Marvel.
No, and I feel like we're finally turning a point too with like really interesting indie creations too. Like it's
They left
taken
the
a
door
couple
open
years
for us.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of cool people are getting involved, and I can't wait to see what the Saskas do and the rest of the Rippaverse stuff, because you don't have to stick with traditional storytelling, and you don't have to stick with the same old shit. So I think it's exciting to be a comic book creator right now. Also, Xavier to God, I forgot to read your other one first. It says, IMDb has a hilarious top 10 Halloween movie list on Instagram. Also, Andrew, did you tell Jeff about Dragon Ball Unseen yet?
I did not. Dragon Ball Unseen is a sort of what-if series of animations done as a collaboration, funded and produced by my buddy Danny, who is the guy behind the Geekdom 101 channel, which is like the Dragon Ball channel. He's paid some animators and artists to do sort of kind of what-if fights and episodes at different points in the Dragon Ball Z timeline. And he just had his first one was it Saturday? I think it was Saturday. It was either Saturday or Friday. And it was I don't know how much you remember Dragon Ball Z, but you remember after Namek, after Garlic Jr., when Future Trunks first shows up and he kills Frieza and he kills King Cold. Well, it's a what if Goku had showed up first before Trunks, and then he fought Frieza and King Cold. And it was cool. Like, don't expect the animation to be, like, identical to, like, a massively funded, Funimation project, because it's not. However, the art is actually on point in terms of it looks like Dragon Ball characters properly. But it is also animated. It's just not like, don't expect it to be completely every single frame animated like you would watch in a fully funded, subsidized, series. But it's pretty awesome, just conceptually enough. Like, it was a fun watch. I would encourage people who are Dragon Ball fans to give it a look. Geekdom 101.
You sold me on What If Dragon Ball, so there
you go. All
that
right,
was fun for me. So Georgian says, R.I.P. Richard Roundtree, the OG Shaft. Yes, Shaft has passed away. He was 81 years old. Richard Roundtree's been in a bunch of stuff. I mean, he's in... I think the first thing I ever saw him in was George of the Jungle, because he's one of the tour guides.
Yeah.
And I love that movie. My grandma took me to go see it, 24 years ago? No, 26 years ago. Shit. Time has flown. But, R.I.P. Richard Roundtree. I'm sure the guys and I will talk a little more about it on Thursday, Georgian. So thank you very much for your message. And go watch Shaft, folks, if you haven't seen it. It's a great action movie. Xavier to God says, I seen a trailer for Will Smith as Jon Stewart Green Lantern.
Oh, you're talking about like those fan trailers, yeah.
I don't want to see Will Smith in anything heroic anymore.
No.
Yeah. No. I don't see Will Smith as Jon Stewart at all. He's not the right build. He's not the right personality type.
He's Mr. Terrific.
If Will Smith bulked up enough, because Mr. Terrific still isn't, like, he's mainly a tech guy, but he's still shredded. Like, if he bulked up a bit, okay, I guess I could see it, but there are probably other actors that could do it better. But definitely not Jon Stewart. Definitely not the freaking ex-military guy, with the buzz cut and the, just super bulky, super, he's ripped. He
should have the body of a Marine, yeah.
Yeah, he should have the body of a Marine that is also a superhero, right? Or became a superhero. That's a little further along that spectrum. Yeah, I would not buy Will Smith as Jon Stewart at all, not for 2 seconds.
I won't buy him as anything anymore. Sorry to go down this rabbit hole again, but after all that shit came out and more information, I'm just like, I already had issues with how Will Smith handled himself. I'm like, it's kind of lame, bro.
But then
No,
he
like
handled
you-
himself that way when he and his wife had not even wife, basically his roommate. They'd been separated for, I guess, 7 years. Wow. Okay.
I don't think he was staying together for the kids at that point because they were all grown.
Yeah.
They're another problem.
Oh god. Will Smith has raised terrible entertainers. God damn you, Will Smith. Speaking of terrible entertainers, Taylor Swift, greater than Disney Star Wars, says, "Hey WDW Pro, remember, all Swift all the time." I guess he doesn't like her either.
I have no idea. I don't know where the Taylor Swift bit came from, but thank you, Matt.
She's in everything. I mean, I try to watch football and there she is. Go to the movies, there she is. Leave me alone, Taylor Swift. Lou Capadona, thank you very much, Lou. Lou says, girl boss fatigue has set in, destroying the MCU. Are you telling me that you don't like girl bosses? Because I don't either. That is like, if somebody's like, if I'm the head of my own publishing company and some writer's like, hey, we want to do this, that, imagine girl boss, this and that, I'd be like, nope, I'm not sold. Like,
I'm trying to think, and it's not that I disagree with the statement, because just girl bosses for the sake of being girl bosses are typically trash characters anyway. But aside from Captain People, like, what other female character was actually by definition a girl boss? I think they were just poorly written female characters. Maybe some
Yeah,
of
and
the
it's
She-Hulk.
mostly on the Disney Plus side of things, not in theatricals.
yeah, like maybe the
With the exception of Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever.
I mean, I don't even know if I would qualify Shuri as that. She was just not a likable character in that movie. And I
No,
wouldn't even
Shuri
call
wasn't
her
much of a girl boss, but Riri Williams was trying to be.
Oh, I thank you for reminding me that she exists.
every
sorry.
Ollie's in America knows she exists because they have dozens and dozens of her toys. You want the helmet? Get the helmet. You want the plastic shampoo bottle figure with the clip-on accessories? They got it. You got the formerly $40 action figure? They got that too. If you name it, and it exists from Wakanda Forever, it's on sale at Ollie's. So folks, what do you learn? 2 things. Never pay full price for Marvel. Well, 3 actually. Never get
Not
into
right
Orlando
now,
in
anyway.
Asia. And finally, just, I hate to
Did
say
you
it like
just
this.
say never get into a land war in Asia?
I did.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, that
True.
is a legitimate statement.
It's air
Was it
superiority
never-
is what you need.
Did that.
I guess you never bet Sicilian when death is on the line too. But
I
that's a
guess.
topic for another day. Adam Walford, what is up? He says, if we go any slower, we'll be going backwards. Thrawn. Dude, I forgot about Ahsoka. That's great entertainment, right? That I forget it exists. That's what everybody
that's
wants.
that apathy that I'm talking about. It existed, and then we forgot that it existed.
Thanks, Disney. TLJ Screwjob, thank you. He says, leftist you just hate Spidey 2 game since Black Cat has a girlfriend and MJ looks like she's in her 30s. Me, Peter, also fugly. Them, Pika face.
Well, it's not even that MJ looks like in her 30s. She just doesn't look like MJ. They gave her, I don't even know what you call that. They gave her Jay Leno jaw, is what they did. Like, I don't even know what to do with that.
I know what to do with
Well,
it.
the paper
not buy it.
bag, and you.
I'm actually thankful that game is a PS5 exclusive, because I already was not going to buy a PS5 because I'd rather game on my PC, and there's nothing else on the PS5 that would get me to shell out whatever $600 for the console. But then they come out with that, and I'm like, so any shred of hope that there was of me playing this game just went out the window, because not only am I not going to buy a PS5 to buy that game, but now I know that if it does come out on Steam, I am also still not going to buy that game, because you insulted Peter, you insulted MJ, you insulted Felicia, you insulted Venom, you just took a big old shit all over Spider-Man lore. And while the first game did make some concessions, characterizations were still largely intact. And
I liked Spider Cop.
Spider Cop is fantastic. That was like that was the greatest running bit in that game. Yeah, sorry. Thanks for letting me know that I shouldn't give you money for your game. 2 thumbs up.
Bigot.
10 out of 10. Thanks. Wow. Okay, that's fine.
It's a term of endearment on this channel, and you know it.
I thank you. You're a bigot too.
I got a badge. Script, I think you might have said this earlier in terms of the ugly character design, but like the Uncanny Valley, I think adds to a lot of it. We're at that point where it's like semi-realistic. It's like the Final Fantasy movie from 20 years ago.
Oh yeah,
It looks weird.
It
Oh,
does.
Spirits Within?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, also, Script, what did you hear? You said earlier you were saying something about the gameplay. Do you remember what point you were going to make? Or
Oh, it looks like it has a very good gameplay model for it.
I mean, if it's the same thing as the first game, then yeah, it would be
The
rock
only thing
solid
that-
gameplay.
The only thing that throws me off, and this is more so with modern games in general, is they have these presets in there where you trigger a certain event and then it tells you what buttons to hit so you nail the combo and then win. And I always find that kind of boring because the game is now instructing you as opposed to you instructing the game. And it's like, I don't want to trigger a quick time event sequence or whatever the heck they call them. If I want to pick up the bad guy and throw him into a car and then swing around and maybe web him to that car and then drop a crane on him, I should be able to do that without it being a preset in the game. I mean, it's a complicated thing to program, obviously, but when I'm recalling from other games, like back in the early 2000s that didn't have that function in there, you could do some really clever stuff against your opponents that would make the gameplay far more unique. Well, not so much far more, but unique to you as opposed to, oh, everybody has done this cool combo thing because the game compels you to do it. And I think that kind of takes a little bit out of the fun of it, for me at least.
I'm with you. I think games are easier than ever, to the point where I don't really enjoy, like, and this isn't me trying to pat myself on the back, but I always turn any kind of action platformer, or maybe not first-person shooter, but most games I put on the hardest difficulty right away, because you can walk through some of these games and they're not difficult. And it's like, maybe I'm from the old school where trial and error makes you the king of the game. But I hate when they're like QTEs suck. I also hate like when your big bosses are QTEs. Like,
Yeah, because now
Zelda had
it's
some of
Dance
that
Dance Revolution, but for your thumbs.
Yeah, that's not what I want. I want to like really kick ass, virtually, and then feel satisfied and fulfilled. But it is.
That's why I play Monster Hunter and Elden Ring.
I have not played that.
I enjoy the punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And those games don't acknowledge safe words.
I just want to try those and The Witcher to see. Isn't The Witcher pretty hard? The third one, at least.
Yeah, The Witcher has a strong difficulty curve, and it's mainly because you can't just hack and slash your way through the combat. Like, you have to prepare, you have to strategize, you have to make use of the tools that you have at your disposal, your different spells, things like that. The combat is really good though in Witcher 3. It just it's not a Dynasty Warriors game. You don't just get to mash X and you're good.
See, that reminds me of the inventive stuff I used to do in the SNES version of Batman the Animated Series video game.
Great game.
You just had a handful of gadgets at your disposal, but if you wanted to do something like in one of like the Joker's warehouse, we have to fight the giant Nutcracker, you could do some really cool stuff with the grappler and batarangs that would allow you to either beat that level instantly or just have fun with it for a few extra minutes before you end up going onto the roller coaster and fighting the Joker. I mean, you don't get that type of stuff in modern games where the sandbox is kind of there for you to create or be as inventive as you can.
Well, I feel that that's a problem across all entertainment now, because even a more complex, thought-provoking story, a lot of times creators are carrying you through the story and not letting you think for yourself or try to figure it out. And I don't like that just kind of conditions people to just have everything spoon-fed to them. It doesn't need to be complex, like to the point where it's boring. But I like to watch a movie and like be left thinking. Kind of like how Murders in the Building. They lay out the stuff. And I'm sure if you go back and you watch it on a second time, everything is like, oh, that's very obvious who the killer is or this and that. But, I do like to be kept on the edge of my seat, and I like a game to make it... I want it to be 10 times harder to beat the final boss than I want it to be the first boss. But nowadays, it's just longer. It's not harder. It's more about your endurance. I'll go play it. Lou Capadona, thank you very much again, Lou. Lou says, modern comics are obsessed with sex, identity, and sexual proclivities. You won't make money with activist writers who self-insert and write for themselves.
Well, that's one of the biggest problems. These people don't understand not just the characters that are already existing and established, that's one thing, but these people just don't understand characters in general. They don't understand people. They don't understand what makes people individuals and interesting. They think that the most interesting and important thing about you is who you want to sleep with, what skin color you have, and what's between your legs or not between your legs. And a lot of the times, those people will create characters that are literally one-to-one copies of themselves, and they have nothing interesting about them as human beings because they think that all that matters is one of those three things that I just mentioned. And that translates into the character they're writing, and therefore they write it as though that's all that matters. That's how they pitch the book. That's how they market it. That's what they think is going to be the draw and the demographic they're reaching for. And the fact of the matter is, people want to read about somebody who's interesting. And if your character is a one-to-one self-insert of you, who yourself are not an interesting individual, the character's not going to be interesting. And therefore, nobody's going to care. And nobody's going to buy it. Nobody's going to read it. And that's exactly what's happening. And that's why your stuff doesn't sell.
And the other part, too, is every writer writes for themselves in some capacity because that's how they get passion. When you try to write to please everyone, you please nobody. I mean, that's the other part, too. I've seen assignment writers that they get a script and it's not a subject they like. They aren't even able to get into it, but they do the best job they can to get it out there. And it's turned back, and basically the principal note they get is it's kind of soulless. And you're like, yeah, because he's not writing. He's writing it for the paycheck. He's not writing it because it's a story he wants to tell. And the goal is write a story you want to tell, and hopefully you format it in a way that it is appealing to your audience.
And that's why it's important to have a proper balance between those things, because every writer tries to write what they know, and they're gonna draw and pull off of what they know, right? And so you're writing, say, Batman, and if you're not Tom King, then you're gonna latch on to maybe one aspect, one facet of Batman's character, his existence, his being, more than others because you connect with that more. And so you're going to tug on that thread a little bit more than maybe some of the other writers prior to you. But if you understand Batman as a character and you understand that there's more to the character than just this one thread, then while that one thread may be your focus, he's still going to look and feel and read like Batman because you're understanding Batman is made up of many things, many facets to his personality, many facets to his character and his world, his mythos. And so maybe you're going to tell a story that pokes at one facet a little more than others, but you're still acknowledging that there's more to him than that.
Well, my last point on this is there have always been personal stories in comics. Like, go read Terry Moore's books, and you have subjects of relationships, or a guy and a girl are in love and she falls in love with a woman. Like, all this stuff that they're putting in like the mainstream superhero stuff has been in comics for decades and decades. They just didn't put it in the mainstream books because that doesn't sell to the mainstream. So now they force it in the mainstream, and it sucks. Like, tell your own personal stories. Don't do a self-insert character. Literally put yourself in a story and tell your story. Or take your most interesting aspects and make something new. Stop trying to superglue it onto existing characters. And that's why Superman looks stupid with a 2x4 glued to his forehead, because you put your identity politics into it. Like, that's what it is to me. It's like, folks, I should do this because I'm an artist. I'm going to take the character that's been done the dirtiest by the wokeness in quotations, and we're going to draw them, and we're going to just, every time something shitty has happened to them, we're going to glue something that doesn't. You know what we'll do? We'll get a Luke Skywalker figure, and we'll do that to him. We'll just glue little pieces of stuff onto him. It'll be stupid, but that's how it looks when they do this to the characters.
Yep.
TLJ Screwjob, thank you very much. Speaking of fixing Sonic, Script, can you explain for new people why companies can't just Batgirl things that people don't like?
Sure. So majority of films, especially tentpole films such as Batgirl, are partly financed not just by lines of credit or business loans that the studios have, but also what's called pre-sales. This is where they sell it internationally to other markets, or they sell cross promotions like confection, food, T-shirts, all those types of things that help fund additionally the movie in some capacity. Now, this is something I'm eagerly looking forward to seeing how Valiant Renegade and WDW Pro look into this, because this changes the types of numbers and determines whether or not a movie, at the end of the day, from all of its marketing and cross promotions, is profitable or not. Because there's the box office numbers, there's the pre-sales that facilitate the budget to get those box office, and then there's the ancillary markets, which have already been addressed with some pre-sales, depending on the types of deals are made by the major studios. The reason they could do that, they were able to cancel Batgirl and write it off, is because Batgirl didn't have any pre-sales. It was self-distributed through Max Property, and it was being entertained as possibly going to theatrical. And if it was going to theatrical, they'd use pre-sales to modify the budget, cross promotions, and then get it out into theaters in order to do that. Because there weren't any pre-sales, Batgirl was an internal project, and just like anything that's in development, they could shelve it and write it off. The reason they didn't do that with Blue Beetle is because they were impressed by Blue Beetle for some reason, and they ended up doing a minor cross promotion and then putting it out to theaters. Once they initiated that minor cross promotion, that's other people's money that Warner Brothers accepted. They are obligated to release it. The same thing is why The Flash was released. The same reason why Aquaman 2 is going to be released. They cannot shelve them because some other people have already put money towards it, expecting that product to advertise whatever joint deal they made with that studio.
Right. Well, The Flash and Aquaman 2 are always going to be full-on theatrical releases, but I
They
believe,
are.
if I'm not mistaken, Blue Beetle was originally meant to be an
Max.
HBO Max thing.
Absolutely. But they felt it was good enough to put in theaters, and they changed it. And if I was in the
Probably
room,
would
I'd
have
be
been
like,
better off not doing that.
No, I would have said no. I'm like, you're wasting Zolo. You've lost your point on the narrative, and you hired an actual. I mean, objectively speaking, the guy who wrote Blue Beetle has written some really good non-superhero works, like crime drama stuff.
Mhm.
He was the wrong choice for this.
Yeah.
He was copying and pasting other movies, trying to integrate it into the genre, and he failed at capturing the heart and soul that's needed to make that
It
character
was like
work.
Iron Man meets Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm not interested.
It's got a lot of cross things in it. I have a review on my Patreon and why it failed, but yeah, that's why. Many movies have pre-sale deals, especially if they can get them. Like even on the independent side of things, you're making an independent movie and you have an opportunity where you can pre-sale some of it to help finance your movie to completion, you take that movie, but it comes with a caveat, which is that you have to release it in some capacity to honor the terms of that pre-sale deal.
And they do that because they can balance those pre-sales against their budget.
Yep.
So that
it's either they
doesn't
balance
look
it against the budget, or they balance it against. They balance it in any way that they want to, because it's not necessarily on the same type of reporting that normal budgets are done with, like the SEC and all of the other Hollywood accounting. From my experience, it's sometimes they call it fun money. I'll just put it that way.
fun
Especially for the bigger studios.
Right. I don't know how fun it is losing hundreds of millions of dollars, but there you go.
Well, here, I mean, yeah, like here's the thing: when you're losing hundreds of millions of dollars, if you manage to pre-sale a movie to get close to that, which not many studios can, a handful could, yeah, you don't care. But basically, you look at it as like, okay, we were hoping to get hundreds of millions of dollars in, so that the pre-sales would just be the baseline, and then everything else would be profit that we could roll into another project. But now it's like, oh, great, now this is covering our losses, and that's where they get really upset.
Yeah.
Thank you, TLJ Screwjob. TLJ Screwjob also says, Dr. Robotnik doing a Fire Marshal Bill cosplay.
That kind of happened, didn't it?
Y'all are crazy.
Sign me up for that. Let me tell you something. God, I live in living color. Talk about a show that can't get made today. They did Star Trek, The Wrath of Farrakhan, and that shit still gets me to this day. or the, what is it? The Play With Myself Pee-wee doll. Oh god, they didn't pull punches back then. That's why that show was fucking amazing.
That is 0 punches pulled.
MJ1 Media says, remember Once Bitten? It required Carrie to suck. I do remember that movie. Nick on the podcast is a huge fan of it. If you ever want to ask him questions about it, MJ1 Media, please do. I believe he's going to a Halloween party as Jim Carrey's character from that. So, Georgian, thank you very much. Ooh, I see James Bond. I've been watching a lot of Bond stuff.
Here we go.
The Guardian is reporting James Bond producer Barbara Broccoli confirms character in films will be reinvented for the modern world. $5,000, please. Oh, I'll press you that button in just a second. You know, we were talking about like what you do with fuck you money. I'd buy the James Bond rights from her just to tell her no. Like I'd find out who owns them, pay a stupid amount of money,
Just be like,
and go
no,
do
I'm
it.
not doing that.
I would do the thing every Star Wars fan wants to do to Kathleen Kennedy. I'd fucking fire her. Just flat out, you're fucking fired, Barbara. And I would just yell at her for about 10 minutes. And then I'd get
Vince McMahon, you're fired.
Oh, yeah, I would. And then I'd call Daniel Craig on the phone and cuss him out because fuck him. And then, I don't know what we'd do with James Bond. But Bond doesn't need to be reinvented for the modern world.
Henry
Your
Cavill.
dumbass needs to stop touching... Oh, look, I like Henry Cavill as James Bond, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. And at the
But
point
if you
that...
bought the franchise and you're in charge of the franchise,
He'd be the right age.
I'm just saying, if we're going with you just bought the franchise, and
We're
you're
doing
in
2
charge.
timelines. We're doing 2, okay? We'll give Henry Cavill his, and he'll be James Bond moving forward. We're doing Old Man James Bond with Pierce Brosnan. We got to make up for Die Another Day. Then we'll go forward with Henry Cavill. But everybody wants
I'm
a
okay with
realistic,
this.
hard-edged James Bond movie. We'll have him be a fucking, you know, James Bond's an alcoholic. He's got the death of hundreds of people on his, you know, mind. He's got the death of women. I don't know, whatever you want to say. He's banged a lot of women.
Yeah, he's got impotency. Viagra's not doing the trick anymore.
Well, he calls up Q Branch. They give him... Never mind, we don't need to talk about 00 Viagra.
They give him a prosthetic.
I'm surprised Q Branch hasn't come up with like a removable or like a shield so he doesn't get anything on the job, but
They probably did.
it's a spray on 007.
No, it's like we've altered your DNA, so as long as you keep on drinking vodka, you'll never catch the disease.
Oh, well then I guess he would be fine.
That's why he never stops.
I
love
guess.
Speaking of love, I love the movie that this button comes from.
Me off, all right, man. Jerk somebody else off. This is bullshit. I need $5,000, not $2,000 thing, man. Don't do this to me.
Look, don't be unreasonable. You're not dealing with Johnny Bananas. Come on, yeah.
Nah, I know I ain't dealing with Johnny Bananas, but can I have my money? Look, can I say it slow for you? Look, I need $5,000. Read my lips. $5,000 is what I need.
Eddie Murphy, freaking gold, man, absolute gold.
He was the king of the 80s.
100%.
TLJ Screwjob, we read your super chat to pro, so we got that one. So Georgian says, hey, Caffeinated Wolf, if pictures and paintings are alive in the Harry Potter universe, would this include anime waifu body pillows?
Okay, so as the sole, I'm pretty sure, Harry Potter nerd in this space right now, at least on this podcast and in the chat, the pictures and paintings are not alive. What it is a portrait is created of a particular witch or wizard while they are alive, and it is enchanted with a particular spell that imbues them with the knowledge and personality of the living being. So everything that person can at least recall to imbue that painting with, then that painting can then communicate that same information with the same personality that the actual living person would be able to long after their death. So the painting itself isn't alive. It's just an enchanted painting that has access to every piece of knowledge that the actual being, the actual human, was able to imbue it with at the time of its creation. So if there was stuff they left out, stuff they forgot, that painting doesn't know it either. So I guess to answer your question, Sazorjan, if a particular anime waifu or husbando did that in the Harry Potter universe, I guess reasonably that could work.
Huh.
Creepy.
I would press the
Creepy
more
for
you know.
certain characters, that's for sure.
I'd press the more you know button right now, but since there's a request, so Georgian, here you go.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
Perfect
that had a
timing.
much larger effect than I expected.
It's the super special edition of Commando. They can't release it in theaters
edition.
anymore.
I appreciate this edition.
The only version I'll watch of the film. TLJ Screwjob, thank you again. He says, I was watching someone stream Spider-Man 2, and when Venom showed up at Coney Island, the way it was done made someone in the chat say, this is the most Gerber baby origin of Venom I've ever seen. I don't even know how to respond to that. That's a burn and a half.
I can't even conceptualize that because I grew up in the late 80s and 90s. Like Venom was horrifying and Carnage equally, if not more so. Like attributing Gerber baby food to that character is just damn.
You know, I'm not the world's biggest Venom fan, but if you're going to do my boy dirty, don't. So, just putting that out there. Even I will go to bat for Venom, even though he's not my favorite. I don't want to spoil the ending of the game for anybody that wants to play it, but I'm pretty sure if I read what I read is accurate. I called the ending of this game a long time ago.
Yeah.
Did I not? Have I not been saying that for years?
Yep.
Like, the minute they announced that Venom was the character, or the boss, I went, this is what's happening. And I'm right. So, fuck you, Sony.
Yep.
Xavier to God says, I hated Black Cat / suit design in Spider-Man on PS4.
I thought it was a good design that didn't work for her character. And what I mean by that is that design could work on a lot of other characters, but Felicia Harding is one of those characters who reasonably knows she's a smoke show and she takes advantage of being a smoke show, and therefore she's going to wear something that also accentuates and takes advantage of the fact that she's a smoke show. That's just her being an intelligent character. She's like, yeah, I've got these assets. I know they're going to catch attention. I'm going to use that to get away with a lot of shit. And there was, I mean, aside from her suit in the first Spider-Man game still being a bodysuit, it's not quite the same. So
Is that
I
where
didn't
she's
hate
wearing
it.
a vest backwards?
I don't know if I call it that, but I didn't hate the design, but I remember being like, it's not quite right. Like, it didn't take me out of the game, but I remember being like, I wish you guys were under the, understanding that Felicia knows she's hot and that she takes advantage of that to manipulate people. That's why she's not good for Peter. I don't understand these people who are like, yeah, Felicia and Peter should be together. No, that's like a legitimately toxic relationship. Like an actual one, not the overused version of the term. Like that's
But bro, the people on the internet can't be wrong.
The people on the internet are almost always wrong. To hell with them. They can sit and spin on rusty rebar.
Ugh.
Yeah, that sounds painful, doesn't it?
You create a device that's made of rebar, but you know how there are those spikes that you drive over when you return a rental car or you're going through some secure checkpoint, but if you go backwards, they'll rip up your tires?
Mm-hmm.
Make a device that's that and just go the opposite way, so it just keeps tearing and tearing and tearing.
Oh, no.
I watched Hellraiser recently. Can you tell?
Yeah.
Oh. Jeez.
I'm reading Stephen King. I'm watching horror movies. I'm enjoying my October.
What you should be looking forward to, and you brought up Night of the Living Dead early. It was you that brought that up, right?
Yes.
Coming soon. Don't have an exact date yet. Soska Sisters did a follow-up. Festival of the Living Dead. Make sure you keep an eye out for that. That's going to be releasing on Tubi.
Ooh, I'm gonna check that out. Tubi's got good stuff.
Tubi's got great stuff.
Keep an eye out for there. Twins.
I believe they have The Fog on there, which I was watching not that long ago. You ever seen The Fog, Andrew?
The Fog?
Yeah.
Adriana Barbeau.
Yeah.
I might be confusing it with something else. Yeah, I think I'm confusing it with a B horror movie called The Mist that has Tom Wellington in it.
Are you? No, you're thinking of The Mist with Tom Jane.
No, Tom Wellington was in it.
No, Tom Welling was in the remake of
the movie we're talking about.
Oh,
yeah, the original Fog, way better.
Okay, so look, the twins can make fun of me all they want. I'm still a horror normie. They are slowly converting me. We'll see where it goes.
To the Soska twins out there, if you need somebody to really berate Andrew for his lack of horror knowledge,
he'll do it for free. Yeah. Jeff will do it for free every Tuesday, probably.
Yeah. Well, not
he
next
might
Tuesday
even bring me
Halloween.
on right. He might even bring me on Thursday's show just to berate me for it. So it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Good quote in the chat right there too. Now this is a hard one from TLJ Screwjob. Fuck, marry, kill, date. Romita Sr., Romita Jr., Chris Claremont, and Jack Kirby.
The hell?
But wait a second. I qualify those people for different things. Like, I would associate Claremont with writing, Kirby and both Romitas with art. What the hell, TLJ?
Well,
yeah, that's a little mixed up. They're not in the same category.
Yeah. Now, if you're like, I believe it was ScriptDoctor and I had a conversation. If you look into what Jack Kirby actually contributed, he might be the winner of all of this stuff, because some of the work that he doesn't get credited for is some of the stuff that they've made a bunch of movies on. So
there's that too. I mean, on the creative side of things, for as much writing as he could have done, or at least that you can argue with regards to the narrative of his issues. Yeah, I definitely could see him as a writer. Well,
Kirby also contributes to a lot of the DC stuff and New Gods.
Mm-hmm. That's all him, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I have to marry John Romita Sr., buy him a house, the whole 9 yards, because that's the artist of artists for me right there. But he's not going to like me because I think I got to kill his son. Because you can't do dirty to Chris Claremont. And to act like Jack Kirby's accomplishments are lesser than John Romita Jr., while he is I think I like John Romita Jr.'s artwork more, and I know that's controversial. I just like him. He's my first artist I could recognize by just looking at the work. But based on this, he's got to go. So TLJ Screwjob, I'm sorry, but you've broken my heart.
This is hard, man. I'll go last. Go ahead, Script.
Well, I mean, okay, I have to keep Claremont.
Yes.
It really is down to like, who am I going to kill? And I don't want to kill any of them.
Right? This is the dilemma. This is my quandary, my pickle. My conundrum.
No, that oh gosh, I don't know, man, because I really like Romita's work. Because also, like, you could, which Romita?
Right.
I mean,
they're both extremely
well,
talented.
Romita Sr. has passed away already, so I don't have to kill him. I guess.
I was
saddest moment of my year.
I know. It's
I'm
so
actually
sad.
glad that Script made that remark, because I was considering doing it. I was going to be like, well, Romita Sr.'s already dead, so I guess.
Because you wouldn't. Here's the thing: you wouldn't have Junior without Senior, so that's the quandary I'm in. Too.
Yeah. Shit.
Well, Jack Kirby's been dead longer, so there you go.
That's true, but he's the king for a reason.
That's true.
Because again, Kirby really grew as an artist between his Captain America days and then Fantastic Four days. Like like holy crap, you'd not know it's the same guy.
My only complaint, not even a complaint, I guess that's a criticism, is like, as Jack Kirby got older, his stuff changed so much, and a guy like Romita didn't necessarily change as much to where, like, I think he just had better longevity. Kirby was
More
only slightly older. Yeah, more consistency. Jack Kirby got screwed over, though, so I'm sure that affected a lot of his life, but, you know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, darn, I think that's the best I could come up with an answer to that. That's a really hard one. I mean, it's usually better to do this with it where all 4 candidates are terrible people.
Right. But all
Not
4
heroes of the
are
industry.
really good here. Yeah.
Come on.
This is TLJ
Rusty
Screwjob's
Coon
being a
Deep on the
jackass with this one.
Yeah, he loves us. We love him back.
This is a screw job, man.
Yeah, this is the Montreal screw job of FMKDs.
Who's going to WCW? Nobody, hopefully.
Nobody
Adam
that
Walford.
wants.
Thank you very much. He says, and Chuck Wendig is also a bad writer. Dishonor Wolf rant about him is awesome. I'm not a Chuck Wendig fan. When he got fired, we were all like,
Anybody
oh, okay.
is. Yeah.
What's he writing these days?
Resumes?
Ah!
Ooh. Burn. Oh, Chucky boy.
It's well deserved.
MJ1, you don't want to eat a shit-covered boot or whatever he told people because he doesn't like the politics.
I don't want to eat a shit-covered boot. I really don't.
MJ1 Media says, my 2 favorite Bond films, 00 Bond, Cavill as Bond, Fassbender as imposter. All the time in the world, Bond and Cousin of Tracy go after Blofeld. I wonder how I'd feel if they brought back Blofeld after they literally dropped him down a smoke chimney and for Your Eyes Only. I wouldn't be opposed to, like, oh, you mean the newer Blofeld? Shit. Yeah, I like your concepts, honestly. I was talking about gearing up for my annual James Bond marathon around Christmas time, so maybe I'll turn it into some content for the channel. Maybe we'll do a couple James Bond streams, folks. I'd love to bring back the 007 Days of Christmas, but, you know, I think there's already a copyright on that one. So we'll come up with something else, though.
Oh, is there really? That sucks.
Oh, yeah, the 007 Days of Christmas was on every year on Spike TV.
Oh, I didn't even know.
It was awesome, too. Like, they would do this weird rendition of the James Bond theme with Jingle Bells. And I was on board. But I was also such a James Bond nerd that when they would do the 007 Days of Christmas, I would just pop on the DVD of what movie they were going to play, watch the whole movie. It would be over because of no commercials. And then I'd watch the end of the one on TV, and then when the next one would come on, I'd do the same thing. I'd pop in the DVD, watch it. Boom. I just really like James Bond. Miss Ninja Julian does remember my Chuck Wendig stream when he got fired. I was in the parking lot of a Shell gas station. I had to stop and stream.
Maybe you could call your 007 thing Jingle Bonds.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah, I guess you could do that.
Jingle all the way. All right, guys, so we've reached the end of our first show back from my vacation, and it was a long one. So, folks, you got exactly what you wanted, more WCBS. But be on the lookout for more. As I'm finishing up Wokebusters, WCBS is coming back to take over the world. So, ScriptDoctor, where can we find you on the internet, good sir?
All over the place. Twitter, I got a YouTube channel. I've got a Patreon where I give reviews on screenplays, writing advice, tips and tricks, as well as a couple of exclusive videos and stuff, one of which is being an audio recording of how I would salvage the MCU without necessarily requiring a total reboot. So, yeah, feel free to check that out over there.
Andrew, where can the wonderful people on the show find you on the internet?
Well, the wonderful people of the show find me on the internet here every Tuesday night at 8:05 p.m. Central Time for the best Tuesday night show in this space, I Counsel. You can also find me over on Twitter. Just type Caffeinated Wolf into the search bar. You'll find me. I'm not going to bother spelling out my actual handle for you because you won't remember and I won't remember because it's Old Norse and it's a pain in the ass. It's deliberate. You can also find me over on Twitch where I stream Mario Kart every Sunday with a couple of my friends from my Discord community. We have fun yelling at each other. I throw back a few drinks. I usually get screwed by some shells and banana peels. It's a great time. Everybody gets to have a laugh at my expense. It's fun.
I need to start watching.
But me. We'll also be having an Elite Cup tournament sometime in December, probably mid-December. We're gonna get together all of the best racers in our space, and I believe it's gonna be a 48 race set to determine the best. We do that annually, usually a couple weeks before Christmas. So that'll be either a fun time or a really, really bad time. We'll find out which.
Well, folks, you know where to find me here because you already found me. But shout out to the Saska sisters for hanging out with us tonight on this chat.
Yes.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
It's always cool when somebody that I enjoy their stuff is, watching or listening in. So thank you to both of you.
Elevator.
Yes, Hellevator. Hashtag Hellevator. Hashtag the movie with Catherine Isabel. Why is my brain drawing a blank?
Ginger Snaps?
I don't think they made Ginger Snaps, though.
I don't think they made it, but that's the Kathleen
Did American
Isabel.
Mary.
That's the one I'm thinking of. That's the one. So, folks, if you're looking for something cool to watch this Halloween, check it out. We like to support all the artists in our community, and now they're part of our artist community. So, folks, check out their work. And what did you say was coming up on Tubi?
So don't have a date yet, but the Saska sisters follow-up to Night of the Living Dead, Festival of the Living Dead.
That's what it
on
was.
Tubi. So keep an eye out for that.
So, folks, you can check out their work all over. Just Google them. But, folks, this episode is brought to you by StealingSolo.com. They're getting really low. Let's see. This is a big order I got to take to the post office tomorrow. And then I think there's a case and some change left. So, seriously, folks, everybody likes this book. Garth Vader in the chat said he enjoyed it as well as his wife. So, if you're a Star Wars fan, it's awesome. If you just like to laugh, if you like comic books, pretty much if I make it, it's going to have something in there for everybody, and I don't have to be like modern entertainment where I make it for everybody, if you know what I mean. So, folks, if you enjoy good entertainment, check out StealingSolo.com right now. Get yourself a copy of the book. Closer to Christmas, I'll be making the Phantom Menace editions available in some bundles, so we can move those as well. But I'm finishing up the epic that is WokeBusters. You do not want to miss it. Words can describe exactly what it is because, it's a written product, but I'm going to wait a little while to get you pumped up for that one. So just go to WokeBusters Comic if you want to get a first edition book. We're going to do a relaunch a little later with some cool new stuff. I have a new cover, not by me, but by a big-time artist who has joined us on the campaign. So be on the lookout for all of that wonderful stuff coming your way really, really soon. But I'll have some videos out in a couple days, so be on the lookout for those. But in the meantime, folks, check out our backlog of content and be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other.